Chapter 207. In the dark corridor, there was no moonlight. In her blurry vision, Ling Qiue could only see Du Chen's slightly red eyes. He looked particularly frightening now. Du Chen, you? Ling Qiue's gaze fell on Du Chen's hand. She saw the gun in Du Chen's hand. Heh. Du Chen sneered at Ling Qiue not far away, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. Mom? At this moment, Ling Li, who vaguely heard Ling Qiue's voice, suddenly came out of the room in a daze. Congratulations, the protagonist's family has been assembled. Tianan, go back, Du Chen. Don't mess around. The panicked Ling Qiue saw Ling Li's figure and pounced over. Shut up. Afraid that Ling Qiue's voice would wake Du Han up, Du Chen's face immediately turned grim. Ling Qiue, I told you to shut up, otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you. At this time, Du Chen's expression was particularly ferocious. It was the first time Ling Li saw the other side of Du Chen. In the heart of every child, their parents are always the best people in the world. Even though he knew that Du Chen was an irresponsible scumbag, Ling Li had never hated him because of this. But now, he actually pointed the gun at his mother. Dad, what are you doing? That's Mom. Ling Li's voice was sobbing. He was so scared. He didn't want to lose any of his relatives. Heh, she is your mother. What does it have to do with me? At this time, Du Chen had long lost his mind. All these years, he had always been a proud son of heaven. He had trampled all living beings under his feet. He was used to the clouds, and he did not allow himself to fall from a high place. When a person covered with the protagonist's halo fell from the clouds into the mud overnight, do you expect him to have an ordinary heart? No, he won't. No one can remain calm when they encounter great changes. Dad, don't you love Mom at all? Even if you don't love her, at least you should think about me. I don't want to lose you. Ling Li's voice sounded particularly sad and desperate in the dark night. I never loved her. If I had known that she had a child back then, I would never have let her give birth to the child. Du Chen narrowed his eyes at Ling Li. Tianyan, come over here now. You will still be my son in the future, otherwise. Otherwise what? Ling Li looked at Du Chen's face, and his eyes changed little by little. Sure enough, Big Uncle was right. Dad didn't love them. He only loved himself. He loved his life of luxury. If one day, father and son had a showdown, Ling Li remembered what his uncle had asked him again. He could not help but close his eyes. Since her father had never looked forward to her birth, should she still have any expectations for him? This person did not love his mother, nor did he love himself. Uncle, Ling Li called out softly, return my favor. I'll leave him to you. At this moment, Ling Li felt that he had suddenly grown up. Although the price of growth was always so expensive. A breeze blew past, and Du Chen only felt that his hand was light. The pistol had strangely disappeared, and the next moment, his temple was pressed by the cold muzzle. Second brother, this is how you use a gun. Su Rui's figure had appeared beside Du Chen at some point. After saying this, he turned to look at Ling Qiue and Ling Li. Ling Li, help your mother back to the room. Next is a bloody scene that is not suitable for children. You won't want to see it. At this time, Ling Qiue's face was still pale. Hearing Su Rui's words, she bit her lip hard and took a deep look at Du Chen. This man had affected her all her life. Is it finally over now? Mom, let's go in. Compared to Ling Qiue's complicated thoughts, Ling Li appeared very calm. Once he made a decision, he would not regret it or hesitate. This was a man who really did great things. Seeing that the two people had returned to the bedroom and closed the door, Su Rui turned to look at Du Chen. Today is the 15th. The moon is full, and it's suitable to go to the underworld to reunite with your parents. Oh, Du Han, I have always underestimated you. At the juncture of life and death, Du Chen was surprisingly calm. At this time, he did not regret his irrationality. People will always do some irreversible things because of impulsiveness in this life. The winner is king and the loser is in the wrong. Where's Xiao Wan? I want to see her. At this time, perhaps his wish was to see Su Wan for the last time? My wife doesn't want to see you. Su Rui replied with a cold face. Love rivals and whatnot were the most annoying. Du Han, are you a man or not? Are you not even willing to fulfill the dying wish of a dying person? Du Chen looked at his big brother and suddenly felt that he was so unfamiliar. He really didn't seem to understand him at all. Whether I am a man or not, my wife knows. If you want to die, I will immediately fulfill your wish. Saying that, Su Rue pulled the trigger without hesitation. Thank you to the headquarters for the sanction reminder half an hour ago. General Su expressed that it felt great to be able to justifiably kill his love rival with his own hands. When Du Chen's body slowly fell to the ground, Su Rue indifferently dismantled the silencer pistol into parts and scattered them around Du Chen's body piece by piece. Tomorrow, the news of Du Chen's misfortune abroad will appear in the major newspapers of Beijing. That's right. The world of the rich is so capricious. Su Rue was directing the robots at home to dispose of Du Chen's body when Lingli suddenly came out of his room. Uncle, let me do it. After being father and son for a lifetime, he will send him off and let him rest in peace. Looking at Ling Li's increasingly cold eyebrows and emotionless face, Su Rue narrowed his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the most powerful person in this world was not Du Chen, but Ling Li. Compared with Ling Li, Du Chen and Ling Qiue's protagonist halo was really weak. In the end, Du Chen's body was taken away by Ling Li. As for where he was taken, Su Rue didn't ask. Ever since Du Chen's accident, Su Rue became the only head of the Du clan. At this time, he returned to Xinghong Electronics and devoted himself to researching robots that were the same as humans. He wanted robots to get along with humans in the future, and everyone was equal. This was the only thing he could do for Su Xiaosu before he left this world. The entire Du clan was handed over to Ling Li. A child less than 6 years old had to manage a huge money empire. Amidst the doubts of the outside world, this child surprised everyone. Your mother, are you sure this is really a child? Eldest young Master Du, are you playing with us with a high IQ robot? 5.5 years later, Ling Li's 11th birthday. Happy birthday. Su Xiaosu looked at Ling Li, who was already much taller than her, and could only raise the gift to his chest. Thank you, Su. Ling Li habitually raised his hand and rubbed Su Xiaosu's hair. Hey, call me Sister Su. Su Xiaosu was unhappy. What happened to calling her sister? You bully me because I'm not tall, right? Looking at Su Xiaosu, who was still the same, Ling Li just smiled gently. Sister Su, is that okay? That's more like it. Su Xiaosu immediately became happy. Let me tell you, if a girl gives you food, you must not eat it. Why? Ling Li's eyes flashed, and he looked at Su Xiaosu seriously. Because it's for me. Didn't Kong Rong Rangli learn? It's terrible to be uneducated. Ling Li. Who was the one who didn't go to school and who was uneducated? A few years later, Ling Li's 15th birthday. Well, happy birthday. Now Su Xiaosu didn't like to celebrate Ling Li's birthday at all, because many girls used to like him and even gave him chocolate. Su Xiaosu liked eating chocolate the most. But now there were no girls giving him things. Look at him. He has a cold face all day long, just like an iceberg. No wonder no girls like him. So pitiful, forget it. I'll let him be happy. Ling Li, look at what I gave you. Su Xiaosu saw that Ling Li was about to put away the gift and immediately reminded him nervously. In fact, the gifts that Su Xiaosu gave him on every birthday were the same. Although they were very ordinary, Ling Li would keep them very solemnly. Today, seeing Su Xiaosu blinking her shining eyes at him, Ling Li had to open the gift directly. It's heart-shaped chocolate? At that moment, Ling Li felt that his heartbeat suddenly became very fast. Although Su Xiaosu had never grown up in these years, but Ling Li found that he liked her more and more. Would he be regarded as a pervert? This made Ling Li feel very vexed. There were too few people and things in this world that could make him feel vexed, but Su Xiaosu made him vexed all the time. Do you like it? Do you like it? Su Xiaosu leaned forward and blinked her eyes at Ling Li with a fawning expression. I like it. I like it very much. Ling Li couldn't help but raise the corners of his lips. In fact, he looked very good when he smiled. But Su Xiaosu didn't have time to appreciate it. She snatched the chocolate into her arms. Okay, you've seen it. You like it. Now it's mine, Ling Li. Seeing Ling Li's blank look, Su Xiaosu couldn't help but explain seriously. Did you forget? Didn't you promise me that any gift given to you by a girl will belong to me? Am I not a girl? Do you discriminate against robots? Ling Li. Not far away, Su Wan, who rarely saw Ling Li being deflated, couldn't help but smile and lay on Su Rui's shoulder. Husband, what do you think Lingli is feeling now? Probably, he wants to die first? Su Rui looked at Lingli's gaze at Su Xiaosu. He was very familiar with that gaze because he always looked at Su Wan with that kind of gaze. Wife, little Su will be 18 next year. Let's leave after her birthday. 10 years was just a blink of an eye. Robots are now very common in this world, and some people have even advocated the promulgation of laws and regulations for robots and humans to marry. Of course, this is still rejected by the public at present, but Su Rui believes that as long as Lingli has the heart, he can change a world. Only by handing his daughter over to this young man can Su Rui truly feel at ease. They have been in this world for a long time, and it's time to leave. Some love and some ties are destined not to accompany them for a lifetime. We should leave, but Su Wan turned to look at Su Rui. We'll come back, right? When everything settles, when she and Su Rui leave the mission, they can freely choose the time and space they want to live in for the rest of their lives. This place might be a very good choice. Chapter 208. Because he had stayed in the previous world for too long, when Su Rui woke up in the execution cabin number 11, his mind was blank for a while. Father, mother, I will wait for you. What flashed in his mind was Su Xiaosu's face when she grew up. Su Rui's eyes flashed, and in the end, he returned to silence. Points. He looked down and checked his points. 67,300 points. These points should be much less than Su Wan's. If he continued to follow Su Wan and couldn't complete the mission, his points would never increase, unless Su Rui's gaze fell on the table at the entrance of the execution room. On it were the materials that Yun Shang brought last time. Cross-departmental trial. First place reward, 200,000 points. Su Rui's gaze stayed on the trial materials for a long time. At this time, the locator on his wrist rang again. Seeing that Su Wan had entered the mission again, Su Rui smiled from the bottom of his heart. Now, their hearts had been far away from the lost time and space because they could only see each other in the mission world. Su Rui returned to the execution cabin without hesitation, but at the moment when the mission was connected, the warning light in his execution cabin suddenly flashed red. Warning! Warning! An unknown bug has appeared in this mission world. If you force your way in, you may encounter unknown dangers. Do you choose to withdraw? Do you choose to withdraw? No. Su Rui chose no without hesitation. Su Wan had already entered. How could he withdraw at this time? No matter what the unknown bug was, Su Rui would not be afraid at all. Xiao Wan, wait for me. Plane Repairer Headquarters, Office Number 1. Su had just returned from a mission world. He originally planned to deal with the recent failures in the department, but as soon as he returned to the office, he received a communication from the logistics department. An unknown bug had appeared in a mission world. Because the laws of that world were special, the bug could not be removed for the time being. As a result, the entire mission world was in a state of temporary closure. The mission enforcers who entered it could not leave in a short time. And there were currently 2 mission enforcers in this mission world. Plane Destroyer, Su Wan. Plane Repairer, Su Rui. It turned out to be Su Wan and Su Rui. Su's eyes flashed. At this time, he was browsing Su Rui's mission failure report in this mission world. This guy was getting more and more willful, but unknown danger? Su furrowed his brows, and a rare trace of anxiety flashed across his usually gentle face. He gently closed the documents on his desk, closed his eyes, and leaned back in his chair. After a while, he opened his eyes again, and there was a glimmer in his eyes. Inside line 001-inch Su turned on the communicator and dialed the internal line of the headquarters of the lost space. Su. Not long after, an old voice came from the other end of the line. It was dignified and solemn. I want to check the information of the mission space where the bug just appeared. Su's voice was very cold, without the slightest bit of warmth. This was completely different from his usual gentle and elegant image. You should know that you have no right to access it. The voice hesitated for a moment and seemed to be in a difficult position. Then activate your privilege. Su did not hesitate and coldly said again. Hearing his words, the voice on the other end of the communication device was silent for a while before slowly saying, "Okay." At this time, in the mission world, there was a sharp pain in her mind. Su-won sat up abruptly. She felt that something was wrong. Something was wrong all over her body. This feeling of something was even stronger when Su-won saw the unconscious woman on her bed. On the soft bed, there was a young woman wearing silk pajamas. She was sleeping. Her face was pale, but her face was exquisite. Even if her eyes were closed, one could see that she was a rare beauty. Who is she? Shouldn't I? Su-won rubbed her forehead and gently walked down from the bed. There was a tall dressing mirror on the other side of the bedroom. When Su-won's gaze fell on the mirror, her eyes suddenly widened. The mirror was white and only a vague outline was reflected. What's going on? And at this moment, the young woman on the bed suddenly groaned and slowly opened her eyes. Her pair of eyes turned from confusion to clarity. The woman looked at the unfamiliar and luxurious room in a daze. Then, she sat up abruptly. Why am I here? Didn't I die? As she spoke, she nervously and excitedly pinched her own face. Then, she suddenly threw off the blanket on her body and ran out of bed barefooted to stand in front of the full-length mirror. The mirror clearly reflected her youthful and beautiful face and her exquisite figure. This is me? Did I transmigrate? Am I reborn? The woman pinched her arm again. It was very painful. This is not a dream. Did I really transmigrate? Su-won was speechless. Well, at this moment, Su-won, who was also standing in front of the dressing mirror but was completely ignored by a certain woman, indicated that she probably, perhaps, seemed to know what happened. At this moment, the bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. A middle-aged woman in gorgeous clothes walked in with a gentle face. When she saw the young woman on the ground, she could not help but frown. "Xiaowon, why aren't you wearing shoes? You've just recovered. Quickly go back to bed." Xiaowon. Her name? The woman on the ground was stunned, but she still obediently turned around and returned to the comfortable bed. She opened her mouth. At this time, a certain transmigrated woman really did not dare to say anything rashly. Could it be that she had to pretend to have amnesia? What's wrong? The middle-aged woman saw her daughter's uncomfortable expression and could not help but walk forward and touch her forehead with concern. Are you still uncomfortable? Do you want Mother to bring you a bowl of bird's nest? Mother. The woman grabbed her mother's hand. My mind is blank. I can't remember anything. Su-won. Well, this was the first move of a transmigrated woman, pretending to have amnesia. Can't remember anything? At this moment, the middle-aged woman was extremely anxious. Xiaowon, what's wrong with you? Do you still remember me? I'm your mother. The transmigrated woman blinked her eyes. Mother, is Xiaowon my name? Yes. Your name is Su-won. You're my daughter. Su-won? The person on the bed suddenly opened her eyes wide. Nanching Su-won? Yes. Madame Su, who was beside the bed, nodded. Xiaowon, do you remember? Remember my ass, I'd rather she didn't know anything. Okay? Mother, I want to be alone. The transmigrated woman lay back on the bed and pulled the thin quilt to bury herself under it. Madame Su looked at her daughter's abnormal behavior and finally shook her head. She slowly turned around and left. Hearing the sound of the door closing, the transmigrated woman on the bed suddenly sat up. Without saying a word, she raised her middle finger to the top of her head. I, Su-jun, am really unlucky? Not only did I fall into the river and die while saving someone, but I even transmigrated into the novel I just finished reading. I even transmigrated into a short-lived, vicious female supporting character. Su-jun really felt that the heavens must be playing with her. Transmigrating into anyone else. Why did it have to be Nanching Su-won? You're asking who Su-won is? Have you seen The Strongest Warlock? There's a male lead called Sun Randu. He's crazy and domineering, killing people like flies. As for him, he has an unpopular ex-girlfriend called Su-won. Su-won, the daughter of the richest man in Nanching, has a pure constitution since she was a child. When she was young, it was very easy for her to provoke evil spirits. Later, with the help of Sun Randu's master, Hermit Zhang, she was finally invulnerable to ghosts. In order to thank Hermit Zhang, Su Wan's father, Su Lin, set up a marriage contract for his daughter and his disciple. At that time, the two children were still young. The two people were ignorant, but they had a good impression of each other. 6 years later, Hermit Zhang disappeared. In order to find his master, Sun Randu came to Nanqing again and stayed in the Su family. The Su couple naturally warmly entertained him, but at this time, Su Wan, who had grown up, already had a prince charming in her heart. When she saw Sun Randu dressed as a country boy, she was naturally unhappy. She even warned Sun Randu behind her parents' back not to have any improper thoughts about her just because they were engaged. Sun Randu was a person with backbone. Although he still liked the beautiful Su Wan in his heart, after being warned by her, he left a letter of annulment the next day without saying goodbye. Chapter 209. This mission world was a world of warlocks. Warlocks, also known as necromancers, were people of the Shinmin sect. They could divine good or bad luck for people, know geomancy, and could also determine life and death with one divination. In short, physiognomy, 5 elements, geomancy, and exorcism, which were called feudal superstitions by people, really existed in this world. Sun Randu was an orphan. He grew up with Old Man Zhang on the mountain. Others called Old Man Zhang Hermit Zhang, but Sun Randu called him Master. Sun Randu didn't know how many years his master had lived, but as long as he could remember, his master had always been like that. When he traveled with his master, he met Su Wan. At that time, she was still a 9-year-old girl. Master said that she had an extreme yin body and must be suppressed with pure yang blood, and Sun Randu had a pure yang body. Yin and yang should have attracted each other, and Sun Randu also liked Su Wan very much. That year, Su Lin made a marriage contract for them, and Sun Randu was very happy. But a few years later, his master suddenly disappeared. When Sun Randu came to the Su family again, he found that Su Wan had changed. She was no longer the innocent and weak little sister in his mind. She became cold and mean. She despised his old-fashioned and despised his poverty. Yes, Sun Randu knew that he was old-fashioned, but he never felt that he was poor. His master had told him before that marriage was destined and nothing could be forced. So Sun Randu broke off the engagement with the Su family. He left Nanqing and went to Mount Mao, the birthplace of the Shangqing sect, because after his master disappeared, an elder token belonging to the Shangqing sect was left in his room. In the Shangqing sect, Sun Randu met the daughter of the sect leader, Yi Yuqi. Although Yi Yuqi was born in the Shangqing sect, she was born with broken meridians and was unable to cultivate Taoist techniques, so she could never become a warlock in her life. Even so, she kept working hard, practicing the simplest telekinesis every day. Her tenacity moved Sun Randu, and Sun Randu decided to use the special method given to him by his master to teach Yi Yuqi to cultivate. Yi Yuqi's father, Yi Guangmao, told Sun Randu that if he wanted to find his master, he had to go to Beihai. Sun Randu set off alone, but Yi Yuqi secretly followed behind him. The two of them killed demons and devils along the way. Not only did Sun Randu's cultivation soar, but he also found his long-lost relatives on the way. Just when they arrived at North Sea, the cities around North Sea were shrouded in a terrifying cloud. In this area, there were continuous occurrences of supernatural events, and a lot of warlocks had gathered here. In addition to Dragon Tiger Mountain, Formless Gate, 5-Element Sect, and even Mayu, the descendant of the exorcist Dragon Clan's Ma family. Mayu was the genius of the Ma family. Before Sun Randu appeared, he was the leader of the younger generation, but since Sun Randu appeared, he suppressed Mayu in all aspects. Not only that, but emotionally, Mayu fell in love with Yi Yuqi, who loved to laugh and make trouble, while Yi Yuqi had long been in love with Sun Randu. Thus, the two peerless geniuses became enemies. The North Sea turned red, and the sea demons were born. When the whole world is dyed red, it is said that the strongest warlock will be born. This was a legend in the world of warlocks, but this year it became a reality. Sun Randu narrowly escaped death and killed the sea demons, becoming famous from then on. He became a peerless master sought after by everyone, and even Mayu had to surrender and retreat. At this time, Su Wan was in danger because the Yin Qi in her body had gathered again. At this moment, she thought of Sun Randu again. She begged Sun Randu, and Sun Randu saved her life again for the sake of their past relationship. But at this time, Suwon thought that Sun Randu still had feelings for her. She wanted to be with this powerful man again, but Yi Yuchi was her biggest stumbling block. Inadvertently knowing the secret that Yi Yuchi actually didn't have spiritual power, Suwon spent money to find someone to set up a 9-ghosts-seeking life to kill Yi Yuchi. Unfortunately, in the end, Yi Yuchi still used talismans and magic tools to successfully escape. Sun Randu finally found out about this matter. He hated Suwon's ingratitude and vowed to make her pay the price. 3 days later, the Su family in Nanjing was exterminated overnight. From then on, the once glorious Su residence became a famous local haunted house. Killing people without a trace, harming people without a trace, vicious and merciless, daring to fight against the heavens. This was a warlock. This was the original mission plot in this world. In the original. At this time, Suwon was floating in her bedroom, looking at the heartlessly sleeping transmigrator girl Su Zhenjin on the bed. She was also speechless. How could it be so coincidental? She had just accepted the mission, but the moment she entered the body of the original owner, she was snatched away by a transmigrator girl. And because this transmigrator girl didn't do any evil things before, and when she died, she still died saving people. Her soul had the power of virtue. Even if her spiritual power was 100 times stronger than hers, she still couldn't take back the body that originally belonged to her. Sigh. Am I going to be a ghost in this world? Suwon was completely depressed this time. Now she couldn't even contact the headquarters, and she couldn't even give up this mission and leave. At midnight, dark clouds covered the moon. The room suddenly became gloomy and cold. So cold, Su Zhenjin, who was sleeping, couldn't help but shiver. She really wanted to go to the toilet. She opened her eyes in a daze, and as a result, the woman's scream echoed in the room. Xiaowan, what's wrong? Mrs. Su immediately rushed in and turned on the chandelier in the bedroom. Su Zhenjin clenched her mouth tightly and looked at Suwon floating by the bed. This is... Xiaowan, what's wrong with you? Did you have a nightmare again? Mrs. Su ran to the bed nervously and gently held Su Zhenjin's body. At this time, Su Zhenjin was shocked speechless. She saw the real Suwon, a soul body that was exactly the same as her current body. Isn't that the original owner of this body? I'm fine. Su Zhenjin composed herself. She was sure that Mrs. Su couldn't see Suwon at all. Could it be that she was the only one who could see her? Fortunately, Suwon was still wearing pajamas at this time and looked very normal, completely unlike the image of a female ghost that Su Zhenjin had seen in the movies before. Maybe she wasn't so scary? Su Zhenjin carefully looked at Suwon, who was floating around the bed in boredom, and Suwon even winked at her. Okay. After asking Mrs. Su to leave, Su Zhenjin gathered her courage and stared at Suwon. Suwon, are you Suwon? And Suwon nodded. Could it be that Su Zhenjin could see her because of the heavy qi at night? However, Mrs. Su couldn't see her, which meant that only people with special abilities or who had a special relationship with her could see her. I didn't mean to harm you, and I didn't want to. Don't come looking for me, okay? Hearing Suwon admit her identity, Su Zhenjin immediately had a bitter face. I really didn't mean to. Transmigration is random, and I didn't want to. How about I return your body to you? If I could get my body back, you would have gotten out of my body long ago. Suwon floated around Su Zhenjin with a helpless expression. Su Zhenjin felt dizzy. You didn't come to get your body back? Then why are you pestering me? I'm a good person. I've never done anything bad in my life. I don't want to pester you either. Speaking of this, Suwon was even more speechless. After she realized that she couldn't go back to the headquarters, the first thing she thought of was to find Suwon. Suwon's identity in this world must be the male antagonist, Ma Yu. The Exorcist Dragon Clan, Mao from the south and Ma from the north. Ma Yu's family was near Beihai. As long as she went all the way north, she would see him. But after Suwon left the Su family's villa, she would become very weak and her soul would have no strength at all. I can't leave the Su family unless you take me away. Chapter 210. I can't leave the Su family unless you take me with you. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Zhenjin on the bed blinked her eyes and looked hesitant. Actually, the Su family is also very good. Su Wan, don't you like your own family? Where are you going? You don't know. This world is very dangerous. Short-lived cannon fodder. A physique that attracts ghosts and whatnot. Su Zhenjin still wants to live to 100 years old. And? Hearing Su Zhenjin's words, Su Wan's eyes flashed. Actually, I just have an unfulfilled wish and want to go out and find someone. Of course, even if I don't go find him, he will actually come to find me. Speaking of this, Su Wan couldn't help but chuckle. At this time, the dark clouds outside the window had dispersed and the moonlight was cold. Feeling the brilliance of the moon, Su Wan took a deep breath. I won't disturb you anymore. Midnight is a good time to cultivate. As she spoke, Su Wan had already floated out of the window. Su Zhenjin lay on the bed, staring blankly. After a while, she also got out of bed and looked through the glass window at Su Wan, who was sitting cross-legged in the garden and absorbing the essence of the moon. Su Zhenjin's gaze became a little complicated. This is a ghost cultivator? Ghost cultivators are ghosts that cultivate with soul bodies. They belong to a kind of ghost spirit with very strong spiritual power and are the favorite tonic of ghost hunters. Su Wan once stayed in a low-level cultivation plane and was familiar with some ordinary cultivation methods. In fact, a cultivator's cultivation method can only be practiced in a place where there is a concentration of spiritual energy. If it is a high-tech world, you will not be able to reach the qi condensation stage even if you cultivate for a lifetime. Any powerful force that is strong enough to break the balance of a world is not allowed by the laws of the world. This is just like in a low-level cultivation world. Once you reach the tribulation crossing stage and reach the maximum ability value that the world can accommodate, you will be forced to cross the tribulation. If you succeed, you can ascend to the upper realm. If you fail, you will be turned into ashes. This world is not comparable to the cultivation world, but it is also a world full of spiritual energy. The cultivators of this world are divided into the qi nourishing stage, qi gathering stage, qi condensation stage, and Xiantian stage. At present, the people in this world are some old hermits in the Xiantian stage. Because Su Wan's spiritual power was stronger than the average person's, she found a spiritual cultivation method suitable for ghost cultivators in her memory and began to slowly cultivate. After a night, when the sun rose, Su Wan's soul body was more solid than before. The sun shone on her face, and she subconsciously squinted her eyes. Ghosts were not afraid of sunlight. It was just that the strong yang qi during the day would make them appear weak. He flew back to his bedroom. At this time, Su Zhenjin had already woken up, and there was the sound of splashing water coming from the bathroom. She is taking a bath. Su Wan looked at the tidy big bed. She simply sat cross-legged on the bed and waved her hands. The curtains in the room were immediately drawn and the light in the room immediately dimmed. All right, now this feels like a horror movie. When Su Zhenjin came out with a bath towel around her, she saw a looming shadow sitting on her bed in the dim room. She couldn't help but scream. Shut up. Su Wan's voice was cold. Su Zhenjin immediately covered her mouth nervously. Seeing that Su Wan didn't say anything else, she carefully removed her hand and asked softly, You can show yourself? I'm not omnipotent. My current spiritual power is not enough to support my appearance in front of others. Just like what you see now, I'm just a vague shadow. As she spoke, Su Wan's figure suddenly disappeared slowly. Looking at the empty big bed, Su Zhenjin hesitated. Su Wan, are you still there? She called for a long time, but didn't get an answer from Su Wan. In the end, Su Zhenjin had to tiptoe to the cloakroom to change her clothes and went downstairs with a complicated expression. Su Wan had been sitting on the bed until Su Zhenjin left, and then she slowly opened her eyes. Just now, the moment Su Zhenjin came out of the bathroom, she had already felt the yin qi leaking from Su Zhenjin's body. Hermit Zhang used Sun Randu's blood to suppress the yin qi in her body. In fact, it couldn't be suppressed for a lifetime, but it was enough to suppress it until the age of marriage. Yin and yang are in harmony. Once this body leaks its primordial een and copulates with a man of extreme yang, the een chi in the body will slowly dissipate. But now, because of the appearance of this transmigrator Su Zhenjin, her soul forcibly entered the body of the original owner, causing the een chi in her body to be in disorder. Now it has begun to leak ahead of time. This is really bad news. Su-wan had no other choice but to cultivate as soon as possible while praying that Su-rue would hurry over. Unlike Su-wan, who was full of worries, the transmigrator Su Zhenjin had the identity of the richest woman and experienced the feeling of being a nouveau riche for the first time. She took her bodyguard and driver out shopping and eating, and couldn't stop spending it all. It wasn't until night fell that Su Zhenjin came back contentedly with bags of things. Su Lin and Madame Su were also very happy to see their daughter in such a good mood today. They didn't doubt that Su Zhenjin would be a fake at all. Back in her room, Su Zhenjin suddenly threw herself on the comfortable big bed. It's so good to be a eldest miss. It feels so good to be a nouveau riche. You feel good? You'll feel even better in a while. Su-wan stood in front of the bedroom window, looking at the outside of the Su family's villa in the night. There, some little ghosts had gathered intermittently. They were all attracted by the een chi on Su Zhenjin's body. Su-wan? Su Zhenjin, who was on the bed, suddenly heard Su-wan's voice. She raised her head abruptly and saw Su-wan's figure looming in front of her window. Yes, it's going to be night soon, and she will be able to show herself. Although Su Zhenjin was very afraid of creatures like ghosts, because the other party was Su-wan and Su-wan didn't show the slightest bit of malice towards her, Su Zhenjin felt that she wasn't very afraid of her now. Su-wan, what are you looking at there? What did you mean by what you just said? Su Zhenjin got up from the bed and looked at Su-wan curiously. See for yourself. Su-wan opened the curtains and pointed out the window. See what? Su Zhenjin walked quickly to the window doubtfully and looked at the group of vague and fleeting shadows outside the villa. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with both hands. They are all ghosts? What are they doing? Is it a night parade of ghosts? Su-wan. Su Zhenjin nervously wanted to grab Su-wan's hand, but naturally, she only grabbed air. Su-wan, what are they going to do? Your appearance has caused the een chi that was originally sealed in this body to begin to leak out, and these unconscious little ghosts and those big ghosts that are baring their fangs and brandishing their claws are all attracted by your een chi. Su-wan looked at the moon in the sky. When the moon was in the middle of the sky and the een chi between heaven and earth was at its heaviest, those ghosts would rush into the Su family without hesitation. Of course, there were many Su family members, and there were also some bodyguards living there. As the richest man in Nanqing, Su Lin also had merits to protect himself because he often did good deeds. However, these could only resist those little ghosts and big ghosts with slightly weaker mental strength. If there were really fierce ghosts attracted over, Su Zhenjin's situation would be really worrying. Chapter 211. North Ridge, Ma Family. Su Rue opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was a solemn statue. Under the statue, there were ancient tables and rich tributes. The spirit incense beside the tributes was still burning slowly. This place is. Su Rue stood up and found himself in a sealed stone room. This was the place where the Ma family worshipped the ancestors and contracted the dragon clan. All the children of the Ma family, after reaching a certain level of cultivation, can be approved to come here. And all the disciples who are allowed to come here must first bathe and change clothes, fast and burn incense, and then sincerely cultivate here for 49 days. After the date, if there is a contract dragon spirit that is connected to their heart and spirit, they can form a contract and become a real exorcist dragon clan. Su Rue carefully felt the memory of the original owner, Ma Yu. Ma Yu has been in this stone room for 30 days, and according to the development of the original plot, on the 49th day, he will successfully contract a powerful purple dragon. The Purple Dragon Clan is a powerful dragon clan second only to the Golden Dragon Clan in the Dragon Clan. There are still 19 days to go out? What a joke. Su Rue's gaze turned cold, and his entire gaze once again focused on the statue of the Ma family's ancestor and the dragon spirit beside him. Ma Yu was the most outstanding genius of the current generation of the Ma family, and he had a photographic memory since he was young. At this time, Su Rue searched Ma Yu's memory and had already found a Ma family's forbidden technique in his memory. The so-called forbidden technique was naturally not allowed to be used. This was also what Ma Yu secretly saw in the family's ancient records room behind the patriarch's back when he was young and rebellious. This forbidden technique could allow people to forcibly sign a contract with the dragon spirit at the fastest speed. This was a very ancient forbidden technique. Back then, it was an era when the people had no way to make a living and 100 ghosts roamed the night. In order to pass down the family and Dao techniques, the Ma family had no choice but to use this secret technique to allow many people who were originally not qualified to contract the dragon spirit to sign a contract with the dragon clan. However, this forbidden technique was very dangerous to use, and the success rate was extremely low. Later, it was sealed by the patriarch of the Ma family in the peaceful era, and no one was allowed to use it after the original owner, Ma Yu, learned of this forbidden technique. He never thought of using it. After all, with Ma Yu's talent, there was no need to force a contract. But Su Rue was different. He was very worried about Su Wan. He didn't have time to waste here. He raised his hand and lit up 3 new incense sticks. Su Rue took out a spiritual dagger that Ma Yu always carried with him from his waist. He used the dagger to cut his 10 fingers one by one. 10 drops of blood fell on the ground, forming a strange pattern. With my blood, in my name, Su Rue slowly closed his eyes. All the spiritual energy in his body flashed at his fingertips. Su Rue softly chanted the forbidden spell's incantation. Faster and faster, faster and faster. There was no wind in the entire stone room. Amidst the sand and dust, there was a faint dragon's chant. The dragon's roar shook Su Rue's eardrums until they hurt. At this time, he still maintained his initial posture and was not affected in the slightest. Time passed minute by minute, second by second. Su Rue's entire body was covered by gray dust, like a human-shaped cocoon. After an unknown amount of time, the strange wind finally stopped, and another deafening dragon roar sounded. The shell formed by the layer of dust on Su Rue's body was shattered layer by the sound. His entire body was still in the same posture as before. At this moment, all of the spirit chi on his body had been withdrawn. His face was devoid of any superfluous expression. His tightly shut eyes suddenly opened at this moment, and a sharp light shot out in all directions. Disciple of the Ma family, are you summoning my king? An ancient and deep voice sounded in Su Rue's mind. He slowly raised his eyes, but his sharp eyes suddenly contracted in an instant. What he summoned was actually South City, Su family. It was already 11:00 in the middle of the night. The ghosts gathered outside the Su family's courtyard began to rush into the courtyard. Some unconscious little ghosts were blocked by the Su family's luck and were bounced back by the invisible barrier again and again, but they seemed to never be tired and rushed over again. What should we do? What should we do? Su Wan, what should we do? At this time, Su Zhenjin was already curled up on the bed in the room, her whole body trembling. Those little ghosts can't come in, and those ghosts with slightly stronger spiritual power can't get close to you even if they come in. You still have merit to protect you. Su Wan was sitting cross-legged in the moonlight, cultivating at this time. When she heard Su Zhenjin's question, she couldn't help but open her eyes and answer. You should pray that there are no malicious ghosts near the Su family, otherwise, both you and I will not be able to keep our lives. Malicious? Malicious ghost? Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Zhenjin's face turned even paler. Su Wan, aren't you a ghost cultivator? If there is a malicious ghost, can't you beat him? And? Su Wan took a deep look at Su Zhenjin. You know a lot? I am actually... Su Zhenjin bit her lips and finally made up her mind and said quickly, Su Wan, you may not believe it, but this is actually a world of modern fantasy novels. In addition to warlocks, there are also many demons and ghosts. The reason why I know so much is because I have read this book and know the ending of many people in it. Su Wan, you have to help me. You must save me this time. If you save me, I will take you away from the Su family. We will go. Go to Mao Mountain and find Sun Randu. Find Sun Randu? Let him save you? Destroy me while you're at it? Su Wan just smiled coldly when she heard Su Zhenjin's words. But Su Zhenjin shook her head desperately at this time. No, Su Wan, Don't misunderstand. How could she forget that she was now Su Wan? And the real Su Wan had already become a ghost. If she went to Mao Mountain, she would be destroyed by any Taoist she met. Okay, don't explain. Su Wan saw that Su Jinjin couldn't wait to rewind and start over, and couldn't help but slowly stand up. After passing this level smoothly, you will listen to me and I will ensure that you will be safe and sound. Really? Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Jinjin's eyes widened in surprise. Then I'll rely on you, Su Wan. Su Wan, that I'm just a new ghost who has just started cultivating. Your heart is really big. Midnight, 11:30. They're here. The air in the room became even colder. Su Wan's eyes flashed, and she floated lightly behind Su Jinjin. Su Jinjin. Su Wan, what are you doing? Those ghosts with high cultivation are about to come in. You will block them when the time comes. What? Su Jinjin was immediately stunned. What happened to protecting me? Don't be afraid. You have the protection of merit. Once they get close, they will be injured by your golden light of merit. Then I will take advantage of their illness to kill them. You and I will combine our swords, and we will definitely be safe and sound. Feeling Su Jinjin's fear, Su Wan couldn't help but comfort her with a few words. Really? Su Jinjin was still a little skeptical when she heard Su Wan's words. Although it sounded very reasonable, she was still scared in her heart, who at this time. A strong wind suddenly blew open the window, and then a few white shadows rushed to the bedside. The mournful ghost cry made Su Jinjin's hair stand on end. She was so scared that she closed her eyes tightly. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die again. Ow! There was another ghost cry, which seemed to be even more miserable than before, but Su Jinjin didn't feel the pain she imagined. She trembled and opened a small gap in her tightly closed eyes. The white shadows that had just rushed in were now lying on the ground, moaning in pain. Those souls seemed to have been burned by something, leaving black marks on them. At this time, Su Wan's figure fluttered quickly in the room. Her spiritual power turned into a sharp sword and fell under those white shadows again and again. After being attacked by Su Wan's spiritual power, those souls that were already seriously injured immediately turned into specks of starlight and gradually merged into Su Wan's soul. Chapter 212. Seeing that the souls that rushed in were all destroyed by Su Wan, Su Jinjin was finally not as afraid as she was just now. These ghosts, are they really hurt by my merit? Su Jinjin's eyes widened, and she looked at Su Wan with uncertainty. What do you think? Su Wan asked rhetorically, and then her expression suddenly changed. They're here again. While speaking, Su Wan floated behind Su Jinjin again. Su Wan was very shrewd. She would save a little more spiritual power if she could. Seeing Su Wan disappear in place and a group of ghosts pouncing on her from outside the window, Su Jinjin screamed again. But this time she had made progress and didn't close her eyes in fear. She watched with her own eyes as the blurry white shadows got closer and closer, and some of them had already revealed their hideous faces at her. Su Jinjin's face was pale, and she gritted her teeth. The moment the ghost got close to her, Su Jinjin saw a flash of golden light on her body, and those souls were immediately burned and fell to the side. At this time, Su Wan rushed over again and effortlessly collected the spiritual power of those souls. When the second batch of ghosts was eliminated, Su Wan's soul became more solid, but there was no joy on Su Wan's face at this moment. Outside the window, the wind was howling and the chill was pressing. Amidst the whimpers, the little ghosts outside the courtyard seemed to feel some fatal danger and fled in all directions. But at this time, a gust of night wind swept past and those little ghosts were all swallowed up before they could make a sound. In the middle of the night, fierce ghosts appeared. Jia 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 jia. A strange and creepy voice approached from afar. Seeing Su Wan's face become particularly ugly, Su Jinjin on the bed couldn't help but become nervous again. Su Wan, what's wrong with you? Who a gust of cold night wind suddenly blew in from the open window, and the curtains on the side also fluttered. When the cold wind passed, a red figure suddenly appeared outside the window. She was floating in the air. Her black hair was longer than the red dress she was wearing. Oh my, a red-clothed female ghost. Su Zhenjin immediately covered herself under the quilt in fear. You can't see me, can't see me, can't see me. Su Wan. Female ghost. Two souls in one body? At this time, the red-clothed female ghost's gaze turned from Su Zhenjin to Su Wan. Feeling the soul fluctuations on Su Wan's body, she couldn't help licking her scarlet lips. What a tempting soul smell. Jia. After absorbing the two of you today, Benji will be able to surpass Old Ghost and become the leader of the ghosts in this area. While speaking, the red-clothed female ghost's eyes suddenly turned red. Black and sharp nails grew out of her 10 fingers, and she charged straight at Su Wan. An extremely heavy resentment and ice-cold murderous intent rushed toward him. Su Wan calmly condensed all the spiritual power in her body. Both her hands drew in the air, and all her spiritual power turned into a light screen, enveloping in front of her. Roar! The female ghost's attack was accompanied by an ear-piercing ghost roar. Su Wan's complexion changed, and the spiritual barrier in front of her began to shake nonstop. This won't do. I still don't have enough mental strength. My cultivation time is too short. This might be the most difficult task that Su Wan had encountered after becoming a mission enforcer. He didn't have a body, only a soul that had cultivated for 2 days. Yet he had to deal with a ferocious ghost that had existed for God knows how long. Moreover, she didn't even have the chance to forcibly withdraw from this world now. Once her soul was destroyed, Su Wan would fall into a deep sleep in this world until the laws of this world were restored. Only then would she be automatically teleported back to the lost space. Moreover, because she now existed in this world as a soul, even if she returned to the headquarters one day, her own soul would be affected to a certain extent because of this heavy injury. Of course, Su Wan wasn't so afraid of being hurt. She was worried about Su Rue. Once something happened to her, with Su Rue's personality, he would do anything. Su Wan didn't want Su Rue to fall into a crisis because of her. Feeling that her spiritual barrier was about to reach its limit, Su Wan couldn't help but turn her head to look at Su Zhenjin, who was still hiding under the quilt. Su Zhenjin, quickly, bite your finger and let out blood. Let out blood? Su Zhenjin poked her head out of the quilt and saw that Su Wan's entire soul was slowly becoming transparent. Su Zhenjin immediately panicked. Let out blood, let out blood. In her anxiety, she bit her index finger hard with her teeth. Blood flowed out of her fingertips and dark red blood beads rolled on her white fingertips, refusing to fall. With my blood, Su Wan suddenly closed her eyes and silently recited the incantation. With my blood, reach the heavens. Lingbao Tianzuan, comfort the body. Following Su Wan's voice, her soul was constantly twisting, while Su Zhenjin's body constantly emitted bursts of soft white light. This is Taoist incantation, exorcism and purification incantation. When the female ghost in red heard Su Wan's voice, she was completely dumbfounded. Crazy. This world is absolutely crazy. A ghost cultivator actually dared to summon a Taoist Tianzuan. Isn't this courting death? Moreover, why can a ghost cultivator use Taoist spells? A ruthless glint flashed in the red eyes of the female ghost in red. You guys are not qualified to purify me. All of a sudden, her long hair fluttered in the air, and the suddenly long hair was like an overwhelming spike, hitting the spiritual barrier in front of Su Wan in an instant. Crash. The transparent barrier shattered in an instant, and Su Wan's voice stopped abruptly. Jia. The female ghost in red rushed in front of Su Wan with a ferocious expression. Go to die. Heh. At this time, Su Wan, whose soul was already trembling, suddenly opened her eyes and quickly recited, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, the troops are diverse. Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, guard the body. The incantation was completed. The blood on Su Zhenjin's fingertips suddenly turned into a huge golden talisman and fell on the female ghost in red. The red-clothed female ghost saw that the situation wasn't good and wanted to escape. Su Wan wanted to take this opportunity to end her life, but just as she used her spiritual power, her entire soul became blurred and looked like it was about to dissipate. Sure enough, if she forcibly used Taoist spells with her current spiritual power, She would injure others and herself at the very least. Her soul would scatter and scatter. Could it be that she really couldn't escape this calamity? She was clearly just a little bit away, but Suwon felt unwilling. Her vision was a little dazed, and she felt that her soul was on the verge of collapse. Suwon suddenly looked out the window nervously. A black shadow suddenly flashed and blocked the path of the red-clothed female ghost. Seeing the shadow that suddenly appeared, the female ghost's face changed drastically. Old ghost. Go to hell. The cold voice sounded faintly. The female ghost in red was already injured by the talisman. At this moment, she was hit head-on by the old ghost. She immediately screamed and her soul scattered. The scattered spiritual power was all collected by the old ghost with a wave of his hand. Want it? The old ghost lowered his gray eyes and looked at Suwon, whose soul was dispersing with a profound expression. The moonlight was cold and the night wind was blowing. The young man leaning on the window sill held spiritual power like sparkling starlight in his hand. This was Suwon's only chance of survival now. This thing. Suwon opened her mouth, but at this moment, she couldn't even say a complete sentence. Seeing that her soul was about to scatter and scatter, the old ghost's figure suddenly flashed and the green light immediately entered Suwon's body, enriching her soul. Suwon was surrounded by a powerful force, but this person's consciousness gradually fell silent. She fell into a deep sleep. Suwon. Seeing Suwon close her eyes, Su Junjin immediately yelled and pounced over. Bang! The next moment, the old ghost gently swung his hand and threw Su Junjin's body to the side. Su Junjin, who hit the wall, immediately vomited a large mouthful of blood. It hurts. This young man named Old Ghost was simply ferocious and unreasonable. Don't touch her. The old ghost's gray eyes were full of malice when he looked at Su Junjin. Su Junjin was frightened. She immediately shrank back, wiping the blood from her mouth while trembling and leaning against the corner of the wall. Seeing that Su Junjin was finally quiet, the old ghost bent down and quietly looked at the unconscious Suwon on the ground. I'll take you away. I'll protect you. You'll be mine from now on. The old ghost softly muttered to himself while gently raising his hand. Suwon's soul immediately floated up and finally floated directly into his arms. Hey! Seeing that the old ghost was about to take Suwon away, Su Junjin couldn't help but say, She can't leave the Su family villa, she will die. Heh. Chapter 213. When Suwon regained consciousness again, it was already 2 days later. She opened her eyes and found that she had left the Su family's villa. At this time, she was lying on a very strange bed. This was a very monotonous room. This room was much smaller than Suwon's own bedroom, and there were some messy things piled up in the room. At first glance, it was obvious that this was a man's room. You're awake? At this time, a cold male voice suddenly sounded above Suwon's head. As soon as she looked up, she saw Old Ghost floating down from the ceiling. He was still wearing the same clothes from the night before, a black tunic suit, which looked somewhat out of place on the thin young man's body. Old Ghost? Suwon spoke softly, her eyes fixed on the young man in front of her. He had delicate features and looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old. Don't look at him because he looks young and immature. In fact, this young man known as Old Ghost was the king of ghosts in Nanqing. He had existed in this world for a long time, so long that he didn't even remember how old he was and even forgot who he was. Old Ghost was the code name he gave himself. You know me? Old Ghost floated in front of Suwon and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Suwon's eyes with his gray eyes. I don't know you, but that's what the red-clothed female ghost called you last night. Suwon shook her head. She knew the information about Old Ghost from the original mission plot. There was such a ghost in the original plot. It's just that in the information Suwon knew, it only mentioned that there was such a strange ghost king entrenched in Nanqing, and in the end, he was beaten to death by Sun Randu. You don't know me, but I know you, Suwon. Old Ghost looked at Suwon, a strange luster flashing in his gray eyes. Seeing Suwon's blank expression, Old Ghost couldn't help but raise his hand and a water mirror immediately appeared in front of Suwon. Su Wan's long hair immediately moved without any wind, and under her fine bangs, a red cinnabar loomed. What is this? Su Wan saw the cinnabar on her forehead in the water mirror that old ghost conjured, as well as the Sai and Chong Sam she was wearing at this time. She couldn't help but change her expression. That cinnabar is our soul contract. Su Wan, you really can't remember? Old Ghost's tone became somewhat gentle. In my previous life, you promised me that you would accompany me in this life. Su Wan. What the hell is a previous life? Look, I've even put on my clothes from back then. Old Ghost tidied up his Chinese tunic suit, and the Chong Sam you liked to wear in your previous life. I've kept it for you all these years. Wait a minute. Su Wan calmed her chaotic mood and looked at Old Ghost with a serious face. You said that I had an agreement with you in my previous life? I should have been a human in my previous life, and you should have been a ghost by then, right? Hearing Su Wan's words, Old Ghost was silent for a moment. Yeah, he sighed, his face carrying endless loneliness and vicissitudes of life. I am a lonely wild ghost that has been wandering in the world for countless years. In these years, I have also encountered many exorcists, as well as ghost-catching Taoist priests, ghost-hunting demons, and those who can see the existence of ghosts. Everyone either wants to kill me or catch me. The rest are all afraid of me. Only you are different. You can see me, but you are not afraid of me. You are willing to be close to me, willing to teach me to read, and you even gave me a name. You are the kindest and most beautiful girl in the world. But they all said that you are an ominous person. They all deserve to die. All deserve to die. Speaking of excitement, Old Ghost's soul began to surge with bursts of black mist. Seeing that he was about to reveal his true form, Su Wan immediately said, "Don't get excited, you have to calm down. Those things are in the past, Obviously, in that era, yin and yang people who could see ghosts were called ominous people, and most of their endings were very tragic. Su Wan could imagine that a young man who had been lonely for hundreds of years finally met a kind-hearted girl he admired. The story of the two people must have been beautiful and memorable. Unfortunately, humans and ghosts were different, and they could not be together in their previous lives. And, Old Ghost, maybe I look like her, but you actually know in your heart that I am not her." Su Wan raised her eyes and looked at Old Ghost's eyes seriously. You are my Xiao Wan. How can you not be her? You clearly look exactly the same as her. Even your name is the same." Hearing Su Wan's words, Old Ghost's eyes flashed. He urged his spiritual power, and everything in the room was distorted. In just a moment, the whole room changed from a modern bedroom to an antique modern boudoir. This place is. Su Wan turned her head and saw that in front of the bright glass mirror, a girl with the same appearance and clothes as her was quietly dressing up in front of the mirror. There was no sadness or joy on her face, and there was no spirit in her beautiful eyes. Bang! The door of the room was suddenly pushed open by a group of people. They walked aggressively while shouting, "Ominous people! It's all your fault. It's you who killed everyone. You deserve to die. Burn her to death. Burn her to death." The chaotic noise was right beside her ears. Su Wan quietly watching the girl in a Sai and Chong Sam being dragged out of the boudoir without any resistance. The scene in front of her changed. Under the dark sky, there was a raging fire. The young girl was tightly tied to a thick iron pillar, and under her feet was a flame that was constantly burning. The fire illuminated the evil, grinning faces of those people, but the girl was as calm as ever. Xiao Wan. It was unknown when a young man in a black tunic suit appeared by the fire. The girl's lifeless eyes suddenly lit up, and then a trace of panic and anxiety flashed in her eyes. "Achu, don't come over. Don't come over." The young man didn't seem to hear the girl's call. He walked towards the fire step by step, and wherever he went, even the fire had to retreat. "Xiao Wan, I'm here to save you." Walking in front of the girl, the young man smiled and untied the rope on her body. "Evil creature, I've been waiting for you for a long time." At this time, there was a sudden gust of wind behind him. The young man's figure froze in place. He couldn't move, but he still smiled at the girl. "Xiao Wan, don't be afraid. Achu, this rope is." The girl also noticed that something was wrong at this time. It turned out that there was a body-securing charm hidden in the hemp rope that tied her up. Seeing the Taoist exorcist's magic weapon piercing towards her with a golden light, the girl suddenly tiptoed and gently kissed the young man's lips. In the next second, she used her body to help him block the oncoming sword. Blood filled his vision. The blood with spiritual power immediately made the body-securing charm in the hemp rope lose its effect. No. The young man howled and the entire house trembled. Why, Xiaowan, why? I'm very tired, Achu. I don't want to be your burden. Let's meet again in the next life. Next life? If a person had a soul and could be reincarnated, there would naturally be a next life. But she was injured by the Taoist priest's magic weapon, and her soul had already flown away and scattered. Where would there be a next life? Watching her lose her last breath in his arms with his own eyes, the young man's body was shrouded in a cloud of black qi. He was enraged. This night, the entire house was burned by a black hellfire, and no one survived. The place where my wife Su-Wan was buried. The next day, on this burned ruins, a brand new grave appeared out of thin air, and this line of words was engraved on the tombstone. Red as blood. Chapter 2:14. Old Ghost's story was like a real illusion. Su-Wan had been standing on the side and watching him slaughter the dozens of lives in the entire Su residence in the black underworld fire. The Taoist priest who was invited with a lot of money was finally swallowed by Old Ghost and died miserably. The love between humans and ghosts always ended in tragedy. Old Ghost, put it down. Su-Wan sighed and gently stood up. Your wife, she wants you to live well and live on her behalf. Put it down? Old Ghost's eyes became a little gloomy and a green color flashed in his dark pupils. Buddhism says that if you put down the butcher's knife, you can become a Buddha immediately. If I put it down, Xiaowan's traces of existence in this world will be erased by time. I don't want to put it down. Even if you are not her, you have to stay here in her place. With that, Old Ghost waved his hand again, and the whole room returned to its original appearance. This was the place where Su-Wan lived 100 years ago. Since her death, Old Ghost had not left this land. He had been waiting for Xiaowan's return. Old Ghost, you saved me. I will remember it in my heart. I will find a way to return this favor, but I must not stay here with you because I also have a beloved person. Thinking of Su Rue, Su-Wan's gaze became more resolute. If he can't find me, he will also be sad and desperate. Lover? Old Ghost stared at Su-Wan's eyes. You are a ghost now. There is no good ending between humans and ghosts. Have you forgotten? Yes, I am a ghost, but he is not an ordinary person. He is an exorcist. Su-Wan couldn't help but smile slightly. Even so, we still have to be together forever. Exorcist? Hearing Su-Wan's words, Old Ghost just sneered disdainfully. The exorcists in this world are cold-blooded and ruthless. They fight against the heavens and cut off the world of mortals. Su-Wan, give up. He will not come to find you again. He will. Su-Wan softly said. Her tone did not particularly emphasize anything, as if she was just calmly stating a fact. Feeling her confidence in that person, Old Ghost's eyes flashed. If he comes, I will cancel the contract and let you go. Really? Su-Wan didn't expect Old Ghost to be so easy to talk to. Oh, don't be happy too early. Humans are hypocritical. Old Ghost snorted softly and slowly disappeared in front of Su-Wan. It wasn't until the Old Ghost completely disappeared that Su-Wan had the time to check her spiritual body. At this time, her spiritual body could condense even in the daytime. This was all because she swallowed the red-clothed female ghost. Su-Wan guessed that the female ghost had lived for at least 100 years, and her cultivation had improved. She was really lucky to be able to survive of her. Since she was trapped here, she could only go with the flow and cultivate in peace. As long as Su Rue came to Nanxing, he would naturally be able to find her. Just like this, Su-Wan began her cultivation in this world in Old Ghost's lair. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month passed, and there was still no news from Su Rue's side. Su-Wan carefully recalled the plot points. She guessed that this time was probably the critical moment for Mayu to contract the dragon spirit, so Suwon was not in a hurry. Instead, she asked Old Ghost for help and asked him to help her pay attention to the movements near the Su family. In the end, another half a month passed, and there was still no news of Su Rue. On the other hand, Su family's people began to privately spread the news to look for eldest Miss Su who ran away from home. Su Jinjin left. Suwon suddenly felt that something was wrong. Su Jinjin is using her own body, and now that her Qi is leaking out, she will subconsciously run to Mao Mountain to find Sun Randu for help in a panic. And how much trouble will she encounter on the way from Nanching to Mao Mountain? What if she was killed and the news got out and Su Rue found out and mistakenly thought that Su Jinjin was her? And if Su Jinjin is lucky enough to escape, the news of her journey will probably also reach Su Rue's ears. At that time, Su Rue will definitely treat her as him and follow her route. This will only get farther and farther away from Suwon. Old devil, I'm going to look for him. Otherwise, a long night will bring trouble. Suwon knew that Su Rue wouldn't recognize the wrong person, but what if he was in danger because of Su Junjin's existence? After all, this world was filled with dangers. You're not going to wait for him? During this month, Old Ghost had been hanging around Suwon's side, personally witnessing her change from the initial indifference to the current anxiousness. Do you know that with your current cultivation base, you won't even be able to leave Nanching and will be eaten until not even your bones remain? I forgot, ghosts have no bones. Old Devil was rarely humorous. Suwon just stared at Old Devil's eyes seriously. Let me go find him. I must go find him. What right do you have? Old Devil raised his hand and a cluster of black underworld fire burned in his palm. Believe it or not, I will make your soul fly away and scatter now. Scatter my soul? Suwon smiled. You won't. If you can really watch my soul fly away and scatter with your own eyes, you don't have to save me that day. Suwon's mind was made up. Humph, Old Devil snorted coldly. When he raised his hand again, there was a golden chain in his palm. This is Suwon's pupil shrank suddenly. She felt the aura coming from the golden chain that really made her heart palpitate and fear. This is an immortal tool, a legendary immortal tool. Who the hell are you? At this time, Suwon looked at Old Devil with eyes full of disbelief. How could there be such a heaven-defying existence like an immortal tool in this world? This was by no means an existence allowed by the laws of the world. Old Devil's identity seemed to be getting more and more mysterious. I'm just an old ghost. Old Devil raised his hand and the golden chain flew into Suwon's palm. This is a pseudo-immortal tool. It doesn't have any offensive ability. It can only cover up the ghost energy on your body so that you can walk safely in the human world. So that's how it is. This makes sense. Suwon breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. The golden chain had automatically wrapped around Suwon's wrist at this moment. The golden light dissipated and a dark golden bracelet immediately appeared on Suwon's wrist. Pack up. Let's set off right away. Old Devil snapped his fingers, and he immediately changed into the most popular casual sportswear and carried a backpack on his shoulder. Coupled with his slightly immature handsome face, he really looked like a high school student. You're coming with me? Suwon looked at Old Devil. She didn't expect him to go with her to find Su Rue. Of course, I want to see you give up on him with my own eyes and then obediently come back with me. Old Devil had a confident look on his face. Suwon. How persistent are you? I already said that I'm not Suwon. Suwon was also speechless about Old Devil's obsession, but with him taking care of her along the way, Suwon could completely calm down. With Old Devil's cultivation, he should be able to let her see Su Rue smoothly, right? Su Rue, where the hell are you? At this time, at the foot of Mount Mao thousands of miles away, Su Rue spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was pale. That bastard forcibly used a secret technique to summon the contractual dragon spirit, but what was summoned was actually a black dragon. Black dragon, evil, lustful, was the shame of the dragon clan. The birth of the black dragon shook the entire Ma family. The matter of Ma Yu using the forbidden technique for himself had aroused the dissatisfaction of the family elders. In addition, he, who had always been placed high hopes on by everyone, only summoned the trashiest black dragon. Under everyone's proposal, The patriarch planned to punish him by sending him to the back mountain of the Ma family to reflect on his mistakes for a year. How could General Su accept such an unreasonable punishment? In a fit of anger, he injured the elders and left the Ma family overnight. As a result, the people of the Ma family chased after him along the way. There were also people who had always been jealous of Ma Yu's status and secretly tripped him up, wanting to put him to death. Because Su Rue used the forbidden technique in the secret room that day and hurt his foundation, he could only fight and flee along the way. He originally went all the way south, intending to go to Nanqing to find Su Wan, who knew that halfway through, he heard the news that the eldest miss of the Su family went to Mount Mao for help. Knowing that there was a problem with Su Wan's body, Su Rue immediately changed direction and went to Mount Mao, who knew that as soon as he entered the territory of Mount Mao, he would be ambushed by one of Ma Yu's former enemies. Little Ye, you don't look like you're going to make it. At this time, a black figure suddenly appeared beside Su Rue. The handsome man smiled evilly. Little Ye, do you want Benwang's power? Those stupid humans don't know how powerful Benwang is. Evil is the most powerful source of power in the world. Shut up. Su Rue wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and looked coldly at his contract dragon spirit. Do you think I have fallen to the point where I need your help? What a joke. Su Rue sat cross-legged on the ground and quietly recovered his spiritual power. He had been running and hiding, but he didn't want to really fight them to the end because he still had to save his spiritual power to save Su Wan. Oh, hey, little Ye is angry. The black dragon narrowed his eyes. You don't need me? One day, you will need me because I can sense the evil factor in your body. Chapter 215. The fastest means of transportation from Nanqing to Maoshan was naturally by plane, but Old Ghost rented a car. That's right, although ghosts have spiritual power can't be used indiscriminately. Traveling thousands of miles in a day and whatnot, Old Ghost might be able to do it with his cultivation, but he wouldn't do this kind of prodigal behavior. And the plane? Don't even think about it. The story of ghost flights was all a lie. The sole power of a ghost was like some kind of magnetic field. If Old Ghost and Su Wan got on a plane, then the plane couldn't leave the airport, let alone fly tens of thousands of feet high. Therefore, renting an off-road vehicle with good performance was their best choice now. Su Wan didn't expect Old Ghost to drive. This was really a ghost that kept up with the times. The two people's car got on the highway and didn't stop all the way. Old Ghost could drive with his eyes closed, and Su Wan had been sitting in the back seat meditating and cultivating. A day passed quickly. After dark, the number of vehicles on the highway gradually decreased, and most of them were large trailers that were used to traveling at night. To be honest, this kind of car was particularly dangerous, and the probability of a large car accident was also very high. In the middle of the night, Old Ghost suddenly opened his eyes and whispered. Su Wan also stopped cultivating and stared out of the window. The whole road was dark and Old Ghost's speed was not fast. Occasionally, some cars would overtake them. For those who dared to speed up and overtake in this area, Old Ghost could only chuckle. Bang! Suddenly, there was a violent crash in front. There was a car accident. It turned out that the black car that had just accelerated to overtake was hit by a large trailer that had lost control when turning a corner. The driver of the large car was obviously tired. Although he reacted at the last moment and controlled his car to not roll over, the small car was still knocked over by the huge impact. The whole car fell into a deep ditch beside the highway, and the driver's life or death was unknown. Old Ghost saw the car accident from afar. He narrowed his eyes and slowly slowed down the car. You're going to save people? Su Wan obviously misunderstood Old Ghost's intentions. Do I look like there's water in my head? Old Ghost glanced at Su Wan contemptuously. I parked the car and just watched the fun. The night is long. How boring, Su Wan. That I was wrong. I should not be serious with a ghost. At this moment, the driver of the large trailer staggered out of the car. It was impossible to see his expression in the night. He seemed to run to the place where the car overturned and shouted a few times. After hesitating for a while, he finally returned to his car and drove away. Su Wan narrowed her eyes. She could still feel that the driver in the car was still alive. He was still alive. Unfortunately, If no one came to save him in the middle of the night, he would be a ghost by tomorrow morning. Just as Su-won was sighing at the fickleness of the world, a small car slowly drove past their car and then stopped not far away. The driver of the car was a man in his early 40s, and the person who got off the passenger seat should be his wife. The two of them obviously noticed the situation on the side. The wife immediately took out her phone to call the police, while the middle-aged man anxiously ran to the side of the overturned car, trying to open the door to rescue the driver from the car. Looking at the scene in front of her, Su-won didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a bit sour in her heart. Old Ghost, shoo. Old Ghost made a shushing gesture at Su-won. After a while, the middle-aged couple finally struggled to rescue the seriously injured and unconscious driver from the car. But the two people did not carry him into their car. The middle-aged man quickly ran to Old Ghost's car and knocked on his window. Old Ghost rolled down the window, revealing his young and handsome face. Seeing that the driver turned out to be a teenager, the middle-aged man was slightly surprised. "This little brother, look, someone is injured. Can you help me send him to the hospital? You have your own car. Why don't you send him yourself? If I send him there, what if he blames me for being the perpetrator?" Old Ghost raised his eyebrows and looked coldly at the middle-aged man outside the car. My car is almost out of gas, and that's right. There's a driving recorder in his car. I'll get it for you. Take it to the police station so that you won't be misunderstood. Little brother, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. You can't leave someone in the lurch. Leave someone in the lurch? There are too many people who leave someone in the lurch. Old Ghost smiled coldly at the middle-aged man outside the car. Humans are so ruthless. Don't you know that? Seeing the sudden green light in Old Ghost's eyes, the middle-aged man's face turned pale. He opened his mouth and countless drops of blood flowed down his pale face. I know, but I can't leave someone in the lurch. This is a life, a living life. Darren. At this moment, the middle-aged woman also ran over quickly. Her blood-covered appearance was not much better than her husband's. Darren, our magic power is low, and we can't walk out of this road. Please save him. Beg her. Old Ghost curled his lips slightly and signaled the ghost couple outside the car to look for Su-won with his eyes. Su-won. The eyes of the two ghosts immediately gathered on Su-won. Su-won felt uncomfortable being stared at by them. You guys carry him up? At this time, how should Su-won refuse? Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Darren. Watching the ghost couple laboriously carry the unconscious young man over, Old Ghost's eyes were complicated. The two of them died at this bend. It was also at night, and they were also knocked over by a large truck. Because no passerby was willing to lend a hand, the couple finally bled to death. This world was like this. People were not like people, and ghosts were not like ghosts. Seeing Old Ghost driving away with the injured young man, the couple still stood on the side of the road and kept waving goodbye to them. Why don't they reincarnate? Su-won retracted her gaze, her tone somewhat complicated. Maybe they have an obsession in their hearts, or maybe they are willing to stay here and want to help more people. Old Ghost sneered. Unfortunately, their imagination of people is too kind after all. What do you mean? Feeling the coldness in Old Ghost's tone, Su-won's expression also changed. This is the only way to Mao Mountain. There will be many people from Shinmin passing by. Su-won, you understand? Anyone from Shinmin, if they encounter a ghost, must kill them. They won't listen to your excuses, and they won't let you go just because you didn't kill. Warlocks and ghosts have always been opposed. The rules from ancient times to the present cannot be changed. The two people finally sent the young man to the hospital and left the car recorder as evidence. Mao Mountain, Shangqing Sect, Shangqing Sect's sphere of influence. As soon as Su-won arrived at Mao Mountain, she immediately felt an inexplicable palpitation. Old Ghost on the side felt her abnormality and immediately raised his hand to grab Su-won's wrist. A stream of black chi poured into Su-won's body from Old Ghost's fingertips. What's wrong with you? Danger. He's in danger. Su-won felt Su-rue's breath. Very dangerous, very messy. Quick. Su-won turned around and firmly grabbed Old Ghost's arm. Please, take me to him. Old Ghost frowned slightly, looked at Su Wan, and then looked at her hands that firmly grabbed him. Are you sure you're begging me? Old Ghost. Su Wan seriously looked back at Old Ghost's eyes. At this moment, the two people's eyes met. I can take you there. I can help him, but I have conditions. Old Ghost suddenly smiled at Su Wan. If I don't die, how about you marry me? Su Wan's face changed. Except for this condition, you can ask for anything else. And? Old Ghost's eyes turned cold. Why? In this life, regardless of life or death, I will only marry one person. Su Wan glanced at Old Ghost. Even if he and I die in this world today, we will be each other's only. Heh, hee. Hearing Su Wan's answer, Old Ghost suddenly smiled, and then he firmly held Su Wan's hand in his palm. Close your eyes. Chapter 216. In the dense forest full of spiritual energy, murderous intent was dense and ghostly aura soared to the sky. When Su Wan opened her eyes again, what she saw was a thick black fog that couldn't be dispersed. There was actually such an arrogant ghost cultivator at the foot of Mount Mao. It's the Ghost King. Old Ghost's tone was particularly solemn. A Ghost King who has signed a contract with a human warlock. The Ghost King alone was not terrifying. What was terrifying was that he had a master, and the person who could control him was at least a human cultivator in the Qi condensation realm. The Five Elements sect is handling matters. Those who have nothing to do with it, leave quickly. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. As if sensing Old Ghost's approach, the man didn't want to complicate matters. He shouted loudly while throwing out a Five Elements Heavenly Thunder Talisman. Old Ghost quickly retreated with Su Wan, and the Heavenly Thunder Talisman detonated on the spot, blasting a deep pit in the open space. Five Elements sect, could it be Emohan? Su Wan couldn't help but speak out. In the original plot, Mayu had a mortal enemy, Emohan of the Five Elements sect. Emohan, like Old Ghost's lover Su Wan, was born with yin and yang eyes. Although he was a member of the Five Elements sect, he liked to associate with ghosts and even fell in love with a female ghost. That female ghost was beheaded by Mayu when she went out to gain experience. Since then, the two of them have become mortal enemies. And, hearing Su Wan's voice, Emohan couldn't help but glance at her, and then he frowned slightly. Another Miss Su? At this time, Su Wan's solid body was naturally her appearance in this world, and she was wearing the bracelet that Old Ghost gave her, restraining her ghostly aura. Even Emohan didn't realize that she was not a human. Su Wan? Su Wan, is that you? At this time, Su Zhenjin's voice suddenly came from not far away. Her voice still carried a sobbing tone. Su Wan, come and save him. He seems to be dying. You shut up. Emohan and Su Wan shouted at the same time. Emohan, your mother. This dead woman is so noisy. Su Wan, dead ghost, even if you die, my man won't die. At this time, the Berserk Ghost King was slowly returning to its original form, revealing its original appearance. It was actually a beautiful female ghost. When the black fog dissipated, Su Wan saw Su Zhenjin crying under a big tree not far away. And beside her, a man dressed in black gently placed the unconscious Su Rue on his knees. Mayu. Su Wan immediately rushed to Su Rue's side, raised her hand and directly grabbed Su Rue's hand. Then Su Wan desperately poured her spiritual power into Su Rue's body. The black dragon looked at Su Wan in surprise and then turned to look at Su Zhenjin, whose face was covered in tears. Damn, are they twins? No, Xiaoye seemed to have said it's not her just now. Could it be that what he was desperately looking for was this female ghost in front of him? Are you a ghost? At this time, Emohan, who was in midair, also landed. A pair of slender eyes stared at Su Wan. When she was injecting spiritual power into Su Rue, the ghost energy on her body had involuntarily begun to be released. Su Wan turned a deaf ear to everything outside and just kept desperately injecting spiritual power into Su Rue. She could feel that the spiritual power in his body had been exhausted. Not enough. This little bit of spiritual power is far from enough. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Emohan couldn't help laughing wildly when he saw Su Wan's actions. What a mockery. His eyes flashed with a heart-palpitating coldness. It turns out that you are the person he has been looking for. No, not a person, a female ghost. Ha ha, ha ha ha, Mayu, I don't want your life today. I want to kill your lover and let you have a taste of the pain I felt when I lost my love back then. While speaking, Imo Han's hands formed a seal and his voice was low. Heaven and earth Xian sect, the root of all qi, widely cultivate the catastrophe, prove my magical power. Suwon, be careful. He is going to summon the divine golden light spell. When Old Ghost saw Imo Han's movements, his face immediately changed and he rushed to Suwon's side. But Suwon still held onto Su Rui's hand tightly and refused to let go. Old Ghost, you go. Suwon just sighed softly. I want to be with him, even if they had to sleep together in this world. She was willing. As long as the two of them were together, they would never feel lonely. Hearing Suwon's words, Old Ghost's eyes darkened. Suwon, you said. What is love? En? Suwon looked at Old Ghost in confusion, but Old Ghost just smiled faintly at her. Love, if it's obsession. Your obsession is him. So, what is my obsession? Obsession. What is it? Love. What is it? Old Ghost's eyes changed from gray to dark black and finally to a strange red. When the overwhelming golden light came with a surging murderous intent, Old Ghost did not dodge. Instead, he opened his arms and used his not-tall figure to block in front of Suwon and Su Rui. Bang! The golden light that filled the sky hit Old Ghost's body. In the dazzling golden light, he smiled and looked at Suwon. His emaciated figure gradually turned into specks of starlight, and at that moment, it suddenly poured into Su Rui's body. Su Rui, wake up! The sudden call seemed to come from ancient times, but also seemed to be close to his ears. The dissipated spiritual energy in his body was quickly replenished, and Su Rui suddenly opened his eyes. He sensed two familiar auras. Those two auras belonged to Suwon and Su. Xiaowon. Su Rui suddenly woke up and grabbed Suwon's palm. You're awake. Old Ghost, he. Suwon looked at the awakened Su Rui, her eyes somewhat red. Although the time she spent with Old Ghost was very short, this was the second time he saved her. And this time, the price was his life. Old Ghost? Su Rui frowned and felt the aura around him. It was gone. The aura belonging to that person had disappeared. He saved me? Su Rui's tone was a bit complicated. Suwon nodded lightly on the side. It was Old Ghost who saved you, but unfortunately, he is already. Unfortunately, Old Ghost's soul has flown away and disappeared from this world. So, what I owe him? Will I owe him forever? Heh. Su Rui lowered his eyes and his eyes flashed. When he looked up again, his eyes were full of coldness. Imo Han, I'm going to kill you. Ha. Imo Han couldn't help but chuckle. Mayu, you want to kill me? Based on what? Based on the little spiritual power that Old Ghost gave you. Or on the useless black dragon behind you. Ridiculous. The dignified exorcist dragon clan's genius of the Ma family not only summoned an evil black dragon, but also associated with ghosts and monsters. Mayu, you're nothing more than this. Your hypocrisy makes me sick. Black dragon. He said you're useless. Su Rui slowly stood up, ignoring Imo Han's ridicule. Instead, he turned his head and whispered coldly to the black dragon beside him. Humph. The black dragon on the side curled his lips disdainfully. How can a mortal with fish lips understand Bunwang's strength? Little Yeya, quickly summon the divine dragon and let Binwang destroy him for you in minutes. Okay. Su Rui did not refuse the black dragon's proposal this time. He stretched out his arm to protect Suwon behind him. Xiaowon, you step back? Suwon nodded and stood obediently behind Su Rui. Be careful. And Su Rui's eyes narrowed and he raised his hand to form a seal. Lin, Bing, Do, Zhe, Jie, Lai, Zhen, Qin, Xing. Divine dragon's pardon. Roar. A dragon's roar shook the world. The black dragon soared into the sky, and its huge body kept circling in mid-air. With the appearance of the black dragon, Su Rui's body slowly floated into the air. One man and one dragon, awe-inspiring. The boundless darkness covered the entire mountain forest. Chapter 217. The aura of darkness enveloped the entire mountain forest, and this area seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. This is a dark enchantment. Emohan's face finally changed. He stared at the black dragon behind Su-Rue. You are not an ordinary black dragon. You are the Black Dragon King? The Black Dragon King, who represented endless darkness and evil. The black dragon in midair flicked its tail and still spoke in human language. Human with fish lips, you should be extremely proud to be Bunwang's food. Master, its dark power is too strong. We are not its opponent. At this time, the female ghost king, who had returned to her original appearance, floated to Emohan's side and looked at him with a worried face. Let's escape. Heh. Emohan just smiled and his eyes fell on Su-Rue again. Mayu, do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? The black dragon represents evil and disaster. You actually dare to summon it. Do you know that it will kill its master? Kill its master? Su-Rue raised his eyelids disdainfully. Just based on it? Black Dragon King. That he was underestimated. What should he do? Little Yaya, Binwang is your contractual dragon spirit. How can it eat you? Binwang is not such a heartless dragon, Su-Rue. That I would be an idiot to believe you, Emohan. Stop talking nonsense. Today, this place will be your burial place. While speaking, Su-Rue had already formed a hand seal again. Ma family's special spell, Divine Dragon Borrowing Technique. Feeling the spiritual power belonging to the Ma family coming from Su-Rue, the Black Dragon King turned around and opened his huge dragon mouth in the direction of Emohan, spitting out endless flames. Emohan naturally couldn't sit still and wait for death. He immediately took out the talisman of the Five Elements sect that he carried with him, 5 elements, Earth Shield Talisman. The soil on the ground rose layer by layer, forming a huge shield in front of Emohan, blocking the Black Dragon's flames. Insignificant skill. The Black Dragon King swung its tail and the huge sharp dragon tail slammed over, hitting Emohan's Earth Shield. In an instant, the shield made of dust immediately shattered and collapsed layer by layer. On the other side, Emohan and Su-Rue were locked in battle. On this side, Su Junjin, who finally stopped crying, wiped her snot and tears, quietly came to Su Wan's side and gently tugged at her sleeve. Su Wan, what's the matter? Su Wan turned her head and looked coldly at the innocent Su Junjin. She really wanted to slap her to death. If it weren't for her, Su-Rue wouldn't have encountered so many dangers and Old Ghost wouldn't have died. This transmigrator girl really had a transmigration halo. She wouldn't die no matter what danger she encountered. Su Junjin panicked from Su Wan's stare. I'm scared. Su Wan, I'm afraid. Before transmigrating, Su Junjin was an ordinary otaku girl. She had never fallen in love, nor had she had any thrilling encounters. She suddenly came to this world and was suddenly haunted by a group of ghosts. Su Junjin's heart was filled with endless fear. When she first met Su-Rue, she was being haunted by a group of ghosts. At that time, she thought she was going to die, but Su-Rue suddenly appeared and saved her. She had to say that when she first saw such a handsome man fall from the sky, Su Junjin was really moved at that moment. Unfortunately, the hero in her mind turned around and strangled her neck after eliminating those ghosts. Who are you? Where's Xiao Wan? He knew that she wasn't Su Wan, and the way he looked at her was too cold and terrifying. At that moment, Su Junjin didn't know how to react at all, and at this time, Emohan sneak attacked with the Ghost King. Everything that happened during this period of time was like a dream to Su Junjin. She wanted to wake up, but she couldn't escape from here. Transmigration? It sounds beautiful, but it's actually very cruel. Puff. At this moment, Emohan was injured by Su-Rue's magic. He vomited blood, and his body fell weakly on the grass. Master! The Ghost King on the side immediately rushed up and looked at Emohan nervously. I'm fine. Emohan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Mayu, it turns out that you have been preserving your strength. Hearing Emohan's words, Su-Rue just raised his eyebrows slightly. He did preserve his strength all the way, but he was indeed injured along the way. Especially at the moment when he realized that Su Wan wasn't Su Wan. His mind fluctuated too much, which led to the successful sneak attack by Imo Han and his Ghost King at that moment, leading to the current situation. Fortunately, Xiao Wan is back now. Su Rue no longer has to worry about her safety. He only needs to do his best to protect her. In this world, even if he can never get out, he will protect her for the rest of her life. Imo Han, it's all over. Su Rue gently raised his hand and a spirit sword appeared in his palm. The dark green spirit sword exuded boundless killing intent. Don't kill him. The female Ghost King on the side suddenly opened her arms and protected Imo Han under her body. Heh. Imo Han, who was under her, suddenly smiled coldly. When did I, Imo Han, fall to the point where I need you to plead for me? Who do you think you are? Master? The female Ghost King turned her face and looked at the man next to her in surprise. Imo Han coldly raised his hand and drew a pattern in the air with his finger. Then he bit his index finger and dripped a drop of blood in the middle of the pattern. From now on, I am not your master. You and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. How touching. The Black Dragon King on the side transformed into a young man in black at this time. Now he was looking at the beautiful Ghost King next to Imo Han with an evil look. It's a pity that such a beautiful woman died. Xiao Ye, how about you give her to me later? Give you? Before Su Rue's voice fell, his whole person suddenly disappeared. When he appeared again, the spirit sword in his hand had pierced the spiritual body of the female Ghost King. At this moment, she still had a sad look on her face, and she had no intention of resisting Su Rue's surprise attack. Disperse. Su Rue silently recited a chant, and the female Ghost King's figure immediately turned into specks of starlight and was absorbed into Su Rue's body. Ma Yuyu. This change came too suddenly. By the time Imo Han reacted, Su Rue had already completely absorbed the spiritual power of the female Ghost King. Since it is an ownerless object, I, Mayu, will accept it. Imo Han, don't think that you are a good man who is affectionate and righteous by doing this. The real hypocrite is you, not me. As he spoke, Su Rue's spirit sword was already on Imo Han's neck. If it was my beloved who was killed by others back then, I would not only let that person be buried with her, but I would also let the whole world be buried with her. Imo Han, if you don't go crazy, you won't live. You are still far from it. Before his voice fell, Su Rue's spirit sword had already pierced Imo Han's body. Imo Han just widened his eyes, and before he died, Su Rue's last words echoed in his mind. When Imo Han gradually lost his breath, Su Rue's eyes gradually turned cold. He turned around gently and looked at the figure behind him surrounded by black gas. Black Dragon, what do you want to do? Little Ye, Bin Wang has been trapped in the dragon abyss for too long. Bin Wang is so lonely. How about Bin Wang help you take over this body? Don't worry, Bin Wang will treat him well and will definitely let him have a group of wives and concubines, surrounded by beauties. As he spoke, the black dragon's figure suddenly turned into a mass of black gas and drilled into Su Rue's body. Su Zhenjin, who was not far away, couldn't help but exclaim when she saw this scene. Shut up. Su Wan glared at Su Zhenjin and arrived in front of Su Rue in a flash. She raised her hand and drew a complex pattern in front of her. The complex and strange pattern of the array flickered with strange brilliance in the air. Su Wan's face turned pale, but she still stared intently at Su Rue's movements. Ayo, who the hell are you? You're not. Suddenly, with a miserable scream, the black smoke drilled out of Su Rue's body again and crashed into Su Wan's array. This is Seal. The moment the black dragon's soul fell into her array, Su Wan immediately activated the array. Soul sealing technique. Ayo, help. Little Ye, help. Bin Wang won't dare to rebel anymore. Hurry up and make this crazy woman stop. While the black dragon's soul was constantly struggling for help, Su Rue finally opened his eyes. Seeing Su Wan's constantly pale face, Su Rue's expression changed, and he immediately stepped forward, raised his hand and injected the spiritual power in his body into Su Wan's body. A moment later, the Black Dragon King, who was extremely arrogant just now, had turned into a shiny black pet dog? Ayo, ayo, ayo. The Black Dragon King was pitiful. He actually wanted to possess Su Rue. After he turned into black mist and entered Su Rue's sea of consciousness, he discovered the true power of Su Rue's soul. As the mission enforcers of the lost space, their souls were immortal. The Black Dragon King's spiritual body suffered a devastating blow in Su Rue's sea of consciousness. He risked his life to escape, but as soon as he came out, he crashed into the sealing array that Su Wan had prepared. You two are breaking the rules. You can't play like this. Husband and wife bullying me? Humans and animals must have love. Chapter 218. A woo, as the black pet dog with an aggrieved face landed on the ground. The dark enchantment in the entire mountain forest also disappeared. At this moment, the figures of the two elders of the Shangqing sect and the sect master Yi Ziyan, who were attracted by the huge dark aura, also appeared in front of Su Rue and Su Wan. This is, looking at the messy scene in front of them and the cold corpse of Imo Han on the ground, the eyes of the two elders of the Shangqing sect turned cold, and Yi Ziyan's gaze suddenly fell on Su Rue. Are you the descendant of the exorcist Dragon Clan's Ma family? Exactly. Su Rue nodded at Yi Ziyan. Junior Ma Yu greets the sect master of Shangqing. You are Ma Yu? An older elder behind Yi Ziyan heard Su Rue's words and immediately showed a fierce glint. Did you summon the black dragon in that dark enchantment just now? The matter of Ma Yu summoning the black dragon has been spread everywhere by people with ulterior motives. When the evil dragon appears, the world is in chaos. Modern people still firmly believe in this ancient rumor. Black dragon? Su Rue smiled and spread out his hands innocently. I don't have a black dragon, but I have a black dog. If Taoist priest wants black dog blood, you can have as much as you want. A dragon that was turned into a dog. Whoa. Seeing that the elders still wanted to say something, Yi Ziyan suddenly raised his hand. Ma Yu, did you kill this Imo Han? What's going on with the dark enchantment just now? Imo Han was killed by me. He chased me all the way here, and I was forced to fight back. As for that dark enchantment, it was done by the Ghost King under Imo Han. Leader Yi, you can go and check it out. Imo Han has a Ghost King with extraordinary strength. Everyone in the Five Elements sect knows about this, but they have been indulging Imo Han to do whatever he wants outside. They simply don't put other people in their eyes. Su Rue answered Yi Ziyan's words unhurriedly. In the end, he couldn't help but complain to the Five Elements sect. Yi Ziyan's eyes flashed. In fact, when Ma Yu and Imo Han entered the territory of Mao Shan, he already knew about it. Moreover, Yi Ziyan was also very clear about the personal enmity between these two people, holding the thought that it was better for his friends to die than for him to die. Yi Ziyan turned a blind eye to the actions of these two people. Today, if it weren't for the sudden appearance of a powerful dark enchantment, he wouldn't have come out to wade in these muddy waters. As for that black dragon, although Yi Ziyan also believed in the Ma family's words that Ma Yu might have indeed summoned a black dragon, no one could be sure that the black dragon was the legendary evil dragon, right? Although black represented evil, everyone knew that black dragons were the weakest of the dragon race. How capable could they be? This, Imo Han's matter. Yi Ziyan pondered for a moment. I will check this matter truthfully with the people of the Five Elements sect. These two are, at this time, Yi Ziyan's gaze finally fell on Su Wan and Su Zhanjin. The visual impact of the two identical beautiful girls was not small. Me us? Seeing Yi Ziyan ask about herself and Su Wan, Su Zhanjin instinctively became nervous again. My name is Su Zhanjin. She is Su Wan. Su Wan took the lead to speak when Su Zhanjin looked flustered. We are from the Su family in Nanching. This time, I accompanied my sister here to find her fiancé, Sun Randu, who knew that we would be besieged by a group of evil spirits halfway. Thanks to Big Brother Ma's help, we were able to survive until now. And Yi Ziyan was slightly surprised to hear that these two people were actually looking for Sun Randu, but he noticed the Inchi on Su Zhanjin's body and his eyes flashed. Nanching? Su family? Could it be the Su family that senior brother helped many years ago, who claimed to be the richest family in Nanqing? Randu is on Shangqing Mountain at this time. Since you are here to look for him, come with us to the mountain gate. As for Marshal Nephew Ma, if Sect Master Yi doesn't mind, Ma Yu also wants to go up the mountain to ask for a cup of water to drink. Su Rui smiled indifferently at Yi Ziyan. Yi Ziyan was not surprised by his move. He nodded. Okay, you guys come with me. Ao Wu, at this time, a certain little dragon king, who was ignored by everyone, was planning to sneak away, but was pulled back by Su Wan's tail. Long, don't run around. This world is very dangerous. Do you know that? Black Dragon, your mother, the most dangerous ones are you husband and wife. I don't know where these perverts came from, this dog. Hearing the Black Dragon's cry, Yi Ziyan, who had already turned around, suddenly looked back. This dog is very similar to the pet dog that my daughter lost a few days ago. It's really similar, and the cry is also similar. Su Wan. That's right, this was actually Yi Yuqi's pet dog. It just happened to be trapped in the enchantment, and when Su Wan cast the soul sealing technique just now, she still needed a carrier. At that time, she just casually glanced at a certain shivering puppy behind the tree, so she directly requisitioned it. The truth of the matter was this. At this time, hearing Yi Ziyan's words, Su Wan just grabbed the Black Dragon's tail and threw him into Su Rui's arms. This is Big Brother Ma's pet, called Long, but this dog is very unfriendly and likes to bite people. I think although Miss Ye's pet is of the same breed as it, it is definitely more likable than it. Hearing Su Wan's words, Yi Ziyan just smiled. His daughter's little pet was indeed very docile and obedient. It had gone missing in the past few days, causing Yuqi to be very upset. She had also gone down the mountain to look for it more than once, but unfortunately, she had never found it. I wonder if she will think of her beloved dog when she sees Ma Yu's pet? If it really doesn't work, I can only go down the mountain to the city to buy her another one in the pet shop. The three of them followed behind Yi and entered the Shangqing sect's mountain gate not long after. According to the sect's rules, one must surrender their weapons and magic weapons to enter the mountain gate. Su Wan only brought a Yuling dagger with him this time and handed it over to the Shangqing sect's disciples for safekeeping before going up the mountain. The Shangqing sect was worthy of being called a big sect. It had been passed down for thousands of years and had never declined. Although in modern times, many sects had gradually declined and many ancient books had been lost, the Shangqing sect was still full of spiritual energy and had many disciples. Looking at the grand and imposing hall in front of her, as well as the wide dojo and the disciples dressed in uniform, for a moment, Su Zhenjin thought that she had traveled back to ancient times. So this was the Shangqing sect? While Su Zhenjin was dazzled, a young man in a blue robe suddenly came out of the side door of the hall. Sect Master, you're back? This is Su Wan? The man originally wanted to ask about the dark enchantment, but when he saw Su Wan and Su Zhenjin behind Yi Ziyan, he immediately shouted, "Why is Su Wan here? And why are there two Su Wans?" The man who suddenly appeared was the male lead of this world, Sun Randu. At this time, Sun Randu looked at Su Wan and Su Zhenjin doubtfully. When Su Zhenjin heard Sun Randu's voice, she also subconsciously looked up. At the entrance of the magnificent hall, a young man with fluttering clothes was not considered peerless, but he was also delicate and handsome. At this time, his face was like a lake, calm and without ripples. A pair of dark ink-like eyes was constantly looking at her, and Su Wan next to him. This is the male lead, Sun Randu? Su Zhenjin stared at Sun Randu with wide eyes, and Sun Randu glanced at Su Zhenjin, then his gaze turned to Su Wan. He hesitated, looked at Su Wan and asked, "Su Wan, is that you? Your mother, you can even see through this? This isn't scientific, okay? You are Sun Randu?" Su Wan took a step forward and looked at him with slight scrutiny. "I am Su Wan's twin sister Su Zhenjin. This is my elder sister Su Wan." With that, she pushed Su Zhenjin in front of Sun Randu. Su Zhenjin. Su Zhenjin? Sun Randu glanced at Su Wan suspiciously. Although the two people looked the same, the auras of the two people were completely different. Did he really see wrongly? When Sun Randu's gaze fell on Su Zhenjin again, sensing the yin qi constantly leaking out of her body, Sun Randu was slightly relieved. That's right, this should be Su Wan. Chapter 219. Su Wan. Sun Randu looked at Su Zhenjin and called out to her softly. It had only been 2 months since they last parted. To be honest, Sun Randu had not completely forgotten his first love when he was young, especially when he saw Su Zhenjin in front of him with a haggard face, but still blinking her big eyes and staring at him. It made Sun Randu unconsciously think of his childhood. When he was a child, Su Wan would also look at him with this kind of admiring and worshipping gaze. Sun Randu, Su Zhenjin opened her mouth. Facing the male lead, she didn't know what to say at all. Okay, don't stand outside. Randu, since they came to find you, you can take them to your courtyard. Yi Zi and couldn't help but speak out. Yes, martial uncle sect master. Sun Randu only realized after hearing Yi Zi An's words. After all, the elders were all here, and this sect's main hall was not a place for him and Su Wan to reminisce about the past. Seeing Sun Randu leave with the 2 women, Yi Zi and turned to look at Su Rue. Martial nephew Ma, is this your first time coming to our Shangqing sect? Come to the main hall and taste our newly picked spiritual tea this year. As he spoke, Yi Zi and made an affectionate gesture to Su Rue. Su Rue smiled slightly and followed Yi Zi and into the main hall. The 2 elders next to him did not enter the main hall. Elderly, what do you think the sect master means? The slightly older elder stroked his beard and looked at the person next to him thoughtfully. Elder Zhang, can't you see this? Although Ma Yu killed a Mohan and formed a feud with the 5-element sect, behind him is the Ma family of the Exorcist Dragon Clan. It is said that he injured several elders in the Ma family this time, but this matter was finally suppressed by the Ma family's patriarch. Do you know why? Isn't it because Ma Yu's talent is superior and is known as a rare genius in 100 years? And hearing Elder Li's words, Elder Zhang also stroked his beard and nodded slightly. You're right. This child's aura is stable, his spiritual power is stable, and his aura is strong. He is indeed a good seedling, and he can kill a Mohan with the Ghost King by himself. His strength is probably already the leader of the younger generation. The sect master treats him so courteously. Could it be that he wants? That's right. Elderly, who was at the side, smiled and nodded. In order to continue their bloodline, the Ma family of the Exorcist Dragon Clan is also afraid that their clan's secret techniques will be leaked, so their clan's marriage system has always been very strict. The women of the Ma family are not allowed to marry people of the Taoist sect, and the men of the Ma family can only marry women without spiritual power as wives. Isn't our sect leader's daughter born with crippled meridians and unable to cultivate? Speaking of Yi Yuqi, a trace of pity flashed across Elder Li's face. Yi Yuqi was a good girl, serious and hardworking, and had perseverance that many modern people did not have. Unfortunately, she was born unable to cultivate. If her marriage with Ma Yu could be facilitated, it would be a great thing. Shangqing sect intersect, disciple house. Please take a seat. Sun Randu brought Su Wan and Su Zhenjin directly to his courtyard. Because his master was Yi Zi and senior brother, Sun Randu's status in the Shangqing sect was not low. The courtyard he lived in had his own main room and wing rooms. The room had an antique feel to it, and it was fully furnished with high-quality solid wood furniture. It really gave people the illusion that they had traveled through time and space. Su Wan pulled Su Zhenjin to sit on the chair beside the table, while Sun Randu sat directly opposite them. Su Wan, the yin qi in your body. What's going on? Yin qi. Hearing Sun Randu mention the yin qi in her body, Su Zhenjin's expression immediately changed. At this time, she couldn't care so much. She raised her hand and tightly grabbed Sun Randu's sleeve. Brother Sun, save me, I don't want to die. Being tightly grabbed by Su Zhenjin, the expression on Sun Randu's face had a moment of awkwardness. Su Wan, don't be nervous. Although you and I canceled the engagement, I will also save you. Engagement? Hearing Sun Randu's words, Su Zhenjin subconsciously looked at Su Wan. Su Wan, that I really got shot while lying down. That was all the original owner's doing in? Seeing that Su Zhenjin kept looking at Su Wan, Sun Randu couldn't help but glance at her. Your name is Su Zhenjin? Why haven't I seen you before? Suwon opened her mouth and a complicated expression appeared on her face. I grew up in the countryside. There are some family matters that I can't say much about. Brother-in-law, please don't mind. Suwon's words, brother-in-law, immediately made Su Jinjin blush. Sun Randu also scratched his head awkwardly. Jinjin, the matter between me and your sister is actually, elder sister is very stupid. She thought that she wouldn't live past the age of 20, so she deliberately angered you away. Brother-in-law, you don't really like elder sister anymore, do you? Then elder sister would be so pitiful, Suwon said while raising her hand to wipe her tears. Su Jinjin, movie queen. This is, Suwon. Is what she said true? Sun Randu heard Suwon's words and looked at Su Jinjin in shock. Your mother. Su Jinjin felt that she was going to split. I am Suwon. Suwon is Su Jinjin. This is a tongue twister. Actually, as a transmigrated woman, verbal canon is a necessary skill. At this time, Su Jinjin also went all out. Actually, I have long noticed that the yin qi in my body has changed. 3 months ago, I met an old ghost outside the house. He told me. He said that I wouldn't live past the age of 20. Brother Sun, I was really scared at the time. While speaking, Su Jinjin bit her lips. I thought I wouldn't be able to live. I don't want to implicate you, really. Hearing her words, Sun Randu fell silent. In fact, Sun Randu was also a smart person, but no matter how smart he was, he couldn't sort out the messy lines of feelings. At this time, he had just arrived at the Shangqing sect and was only a new good friend with Yiyuchi. The two of them had not developed into a couple. At this time, his ex-fiancée suddenly came over to ask to get back together. The male lead was also very conflicted. Suwon, don't think so much. You and your sister stay here first. When I help you reseal the yin qi in your body, we'll talk about other things. What do you think? Hearing Sun Randu's proposal, Su Jinjin breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Thank you, big brother Sun. Don't mention it. I'll ask someone to help you clean up the room. Sit down first. While speaking, Sun Randu quickly stood up and strode out. Seeing him go out, Su Jinjin immediately turned her head to look at Suwon and said anxiously, Su. Her eyes widened, and as soon as she opened her mouth, her whole mouth was covered by Suwon in time. Elder sister. Suwon looked at Su Jinjin in front of her with a deep gaze. I think brother-in-law is also affectionate and loyal to you. I already said that your worries on the road are superfluous. As she spoke, Suwon gently released the hand covering Su Jinjin's mouth and glanced outside the door. Su Jinjin immediately understood and continued Suwon's words. Jinjin, actually, I haven't seen him for many years and I don't know what he has become. Fortunately, he is still the same as back then. Maybe I should believe him this time. In this life, one must be prepared to act at all times. Seeing that Su Jinjin got into character so quickly, Suwon was really relieved. Come on, transmigrated woman, counterattack the female lead. Get close to the male lead. A beautiful and bright future is waiting for you. At this time, outside the door, Sun Randu stood there with rapt attention and held his breath, clearly hearing the conversation between the two women. Could it be that he was really being paranoid? As a member of the Shinmin sect, although Sun Randu's main business was to subdue demons and exorcise ghosts, he actually also knew geomancy and fortune-telling. He had noticed Suwon's face before, and she had no siblings in her life. What's going on with this younger sister who popped out of nowhere? When he was in the room, Sun Randu also quietly observed the face of Su Jinjin. Her face was almost exactly the same as Suwon's, but upon closer inspection, there were some strange differences between the two people's faces. That's Su Jinjin. He couldn't infer her fortune from her face at all. Such a thing was really unimaginable. Chapter 220. Shangqing Sect, Inner Sect, Dojo. Although Yiyuchi could not gather spiritual qi since she was a child, she was born in the Shangqing sect and was the daughter of the sect leader. She had a very strong desire to slay demons and ghosts since she was a child. In order to let his daughter be able to cultivate spiritual qi like others, Yizian had tried every means in the past 17 years and even spent a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures for his daughter. Unfortunately, he still could not get through Yi Yuqi's innately terminated meridians. In the past 2 years, Yi Zian had gradually given up. He only hoped that his daughter could grow up safely, find a good man she liked, and live a happy and warm life. However, Yi Yuqi's thoughts were different from Yi Zian's. She longed to have spiritual power, to be able to exorcise demons, and become a powerful warlock like her father. This kind of thought had always existed in Yi Yuqi's heart, and as time went by, it would only become stronger. Little junior sister. Today, as usual, Yi Yuqi was sitting cross-legged in the dojo to temper her mental power. However, she was interrupted halfway through her training. Senior brother Bai. What's the matter? The one who called Yi Yuqi was an inner sect disciple surnamed Bai. Seeing Yi Yuqi stand up and look at him, Senior brother Bai couldn't help but smile shyly. Little junior sister, the sect leader asked you to go to the main hall. There seems to be a distinguished guest in the sect just now. Oh, got it. Hearing Senior brother Bai's words, Yi Yuqi just nodded sullenly. She was not curious about the so-called distinguished guest. The person her father introduced to her must be some elders or sect leaders of other sections. Because she couldn't cultivate, her father had been trying to make connections for her, just to let those people take care of her. Yi Yuqi understood this in her heart, but in fact, she was a little repulsed. The distance from the dojo to the sect's main hall was not far, but Yi Yuqi deliberately walked very slowly. Before she entered the main hall, she heard her father's laughter. In Yi Yuqi's impression, her father rarely laughed so heartily. It seemed that today's distinguished guest was really not ordinary. Father. Yi Yuqi slowly walked into the hall. As she spoke, she raised her eyes to observe the situation in the hall. At this time, Yi Zian was sitting in the main seat with a smile on his face. The hall was filled with the fragrance of spirit tea. In the mellow and clear fragrance, a young man in black casual clothes was sitting elegantly and calmly on the left side of Yi Zian. The man was handsome and had a graceful bearing, especially his calm and indifferent eyes. It was as if he was noble and aloof from the world. Father, this is... Yi Yuqi had seen a lot of young talents from other sects, but there was only one person like the person in front of her, who could make her be subdued by the other party's aura and demeanor with just a glance. Yuqi, come here quickly. This is the descendant of the famous exorcist Dragon Clan's Ma family, Ma Yu. Ma Yu? Was he the number one of the Ma family's younger generation? Hearing Yi Zian's words, Yi Yuqi's eyes lit up even more. Yi Yuqi greets senior brother Ma. Walking to the front of her father, Yi Yuqi bowed to Su Rue. Junior sister Yi is too polite. Su Rue lazily raised his eyelids and smiled at Yi Yuqi. People under the eaves, he naturally had to give Yi Zian some face. Yuqi, this is the first time your senior brother Ma has come to our Shangqing sect. Can you show him around? Seeing that his daughter's first impression of Ma Yu seemed to be good, Yi Zian immediately couldn't help but strike while the iron was hot and said, Martial nephew Ma, if you have nothing to do, you can stay here for a few more days and let Yuqi accompany you around. I will explain the matter of Imo Han to the Five Elements sect. Thank you very much, sect leader Yi. How could Su Rue not see through Yi Zian's thoughts at this time? But he just didn't want to point it out. Then, senior brother Ma, let's go for a walk now? Seeing that Su Rue agreed, Yi Yuqi couldn't help but blink a pair of bright eyes and look at Su Rue with a face full of hope. Okay, junior sister Yi, lead the way. Seeing the two of them walk out of the hall one after another, Yi Zian slowly nodded his head behind them. Not bad, not bad. Ma Yu, this child, not only has a high cultivation base, but also has a calm personality. He is also very talkative and knowledgeable. He is a very good candidate for a son-in-law. The Maoshan mountain range, where the Shangqing sect is located, has always been known as the eighth paradise in Xinmin, the first blessed land. The Shangqing sect's mountain gate is also beautiful, with green mountains and clear waters, and the spiritual energy is oppressive. Yi Yuqi took Su Rue around the dojo and came to the mountain spring at the back of the mountain. The spring water gurgled and was so clear that the bottom could be seen. From afar, they could see a few small fish swimming happily under the spring water. The scenery here is really good. Su Rue took a deep breath, felt the spiritual energy in the mountains, and couldn't help but sigh. Senior brother Ma also thinks it's beautiful here? Hearing Su Rui's sigh, Yiyuchi's face was full of pride. She couldn't help but raise her hand and point to the peak not far away. Look, Senior brother Ma, that is the main peak of our sect. Above the main peak is the Jiuxiao Wanfu Palace built by the founder. If you can climb there and watch the morning sun rise in the clouds, it must be a very happy thing. Oh. Su Rui followed the direction Yiyuchi pointed and looked at the towering palace hidden in the clouds and mist. That place. Ordinary people can't go there? Senior brother Ma, you don't know, right? That is the forbidden area of our sect. It is said that only people who have reached the innate realm are qualified to climb the stairs to Jiuxiao Wanfu Palace. At the end of the stairs is the main hall of Wanfu Palace, and in the main hall, at this point, Yiyuchi's voice paused. I don't know what's in the main hall. Oh? Feeling that she seemed to be hiding something, Su Rui's eyes just flashed and did not continue to ask. There was silence between the two people, and Yiyuchi would secretly turn her face from time to time, looking at Su Rui with sparkling eyes. Junior sister Yi, do you have something to ask me? Along the way, Yiyuchi had been secretly looking at him. No, to be exact, she should have been secretly looking at the dog in his arms. Black Dragon King. Bin Wang is a dragon. A dragon. Purebred black dragon, Senior brother Ma. Actually, I just want to ask, the dog in your arms, Yiyuchi thought about the wording and didn't know how to continue asking for a while. In fact, just now in the main hall, she noticed that the black puppy in Su Rui's arms was exactly the same as the one she lost. But she was shocked by Su Rui's aura at that time and didn't dare to ask abruptly. Along the way, she felt that Senior brother Ma was not as cold as she imagined, so Yiyuchi dared to ask. It's called Long Long. Su Rui naturally knew what Yiyuchi wanted to ask. I heard from sect leader Yi that you also have such a pet? Yes, my one is called September, because it was born in September. September sneaked down the mountain a few days ago and hasn't come back yet. Speaking of her little pet, Yiyuchi couldn't help but look anxious and sad. I don't know where it is now. If it was caught, what should I do? Hearing Yiyuchi's words, Su Rui just remained silent. And the Black Dragon King in his arms couldn't help but cry out awoo-awoo. Beauty, beauty, look here, Bin Wang is here. Quickly hold Bin Wang in your arms, feeling the Black Dragon King's restlessness. Su Rui's gaze turned cold and his slender and good-looking fingers gently stroked its fur. The little thing in his arms immediately had its hair stand upright and obediently quieted down. It seems to be very obedient to you. September is much more mischievous than it. Although the two dogs looked exactly the same, Yiyuchi also felt that this one was not her September, because the way September looked at her was not like this. It actually listens to my wife the most. Hearing Yiyuchi's words, Su Rui couldn't help but smile and whisper, Oh? Yiyuchi's face changed slightly when she heard Su Rui's words. Senior brother Ma, you are already married? Not yet, but soon. Speaking of this, Su Rui looked at Yiyuchi meaningfully. Does junior sister Yi have a sweetheart? Sweetheart? Yiyuchi's gaze darkened. No, not yet. Chapter 221. Su Wan and Su Zhenjin were arranged to live in the wing room of Sun Randu's courtyard, and Su Rui, as Yi Zi and's VIP guest, naturally had Shangqing sect's guest courtyard for him to live alone. It was night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. A black shadow quietly flashed into Su Wan's room. Su Wan's eyelashes fluttered a few times on the bed and she lazily turned over on the bed. The next second, her whole body was held in Su Rui's arms. Wife, you haven't slept yet? And Su Wan turned over in Su Rui's arms and stretched out her arms to hug him tightly. On the way to Mount Mao, she had been very worried. When she first saw the unconscious Su Rui in the forest, at that moment, Su Wan felt that her heart was about to stop beating. She had never been so panicked and afraid. Losing a person. It wasn't that she hadn't tasted that kind of feeling, but Su Rui was different from others. She couldn't lose him. Feeling Su Wan's uneasy mood, Su Rui couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her forehead. Okay, wife, It's all over. Don't be afraid. Who said I'm afraid? Su Wan raised her head in Su Rue's embrace and fixed her gaze on him. Then, Su Wan's gaze slightly flashed. Only now did she notice that a black puppy was lying on the table in her room with a bored expression. A pair of sparkling eyes stared at her without blinking. Su Wan simply sat up from the bed and narrowed her eyes at the Black Dragon King on the table. Black Dragon King, what are you looking at Binwang for? You guys continue. Just pretend that Binwang doesn't exist. Noticing Su Wan's movements, Su Rue also sat up. I was worried about leaving it there alone, so I brought it over. That's true. Su Wan pinched her chin with her fingers. It's quite troublesome to carry such a thing around. Why don't we just cook it and eat it? Black Dragon King. Awu, this king's meat is sour. I can't eat it. Seeing the Black Dragon King constantly shaking his little claws and looking at himself with a pitiful face, Su Rue couldn't help but smile. It's a pity to eat it. I have an idea. Yi Yuqi said that there is a Jiuxiao Wanfu palace on the main peak of Maoshan. I suspect that the palace contains the secret techniques of the Shangqing sect, or a magic weapon handed down from generation to generation. With our current spiritual power, we can't climb the steps of the main peak at all, and there is also the danger of being discovered at any time. But I think we can try it. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan couldn't help but ponder. Jiuxiao Wanfu Palace was a forbidden place of the Shangqing sect. It was not described too much in the original plot, but this great sect that had been passed down for thousands of years must have some good things that were hidden away. Your idea is good, but this thing looks unreliable at first glance. Su Wan couldn't help but stare at the Black Dragon King again. It was because his spiritual body was injured by Su Rue that he was so easily sealed by her. If his spiritual power recovers, he may break through her soul-sealing technique at any time. At that time, she and Su Rue together may not necessarily be the opponent of this Black Dragon King. Black Dragon King. It is said that a woman's heart is the most poisonous. Xiao Yeye, your wife is a woman as poisonous as a snake and scorpion at first glance. Feeling Su Wan's cold gaze, the Black Dragon King cursed in his heart while pretending to be pitiful. At this moment, Su Rue's eyes suddenly changed slightly. He and Su Wan looked at each other. His body flashed. He came under the bed and scooped up the Black Dragon King on the table. One man and one dog immediately disappeared. Creak, the door of Su Wan's room was suddenly pushed open gently. Su Zhenjin? The vague male voice probed cautiously. Seeing that the person on the bed did not respond, the shadow at the door slowly walked in. The person who came in was none other than Sun Randu. At this time, Sun Randu was still wearing the Taoist robe of the Qing sect. His whole person looked like an immortal, but he sneaked into a girl's room in the middle of the night. Was he really a man? Su Zhenjin? Sun Randu stood in front of Su Wan's bed and called out softly again. But Su Wan on the bed seemed to be sleeping soundly and did not respond at all. Looking at the familiar face on the bed, Sun Randu's gaze became solemn. During the day, he just felt that this Su Zhenjin was a little strange. At night, he habitually observed the sky after cultivating. But Sun Randu suddenly found that the stars in his fate palace were in chaos. As the saying goes, doctors don't cure themselves. Sun Randu could tell the fortune of others, but in fact, he had never been able to calculate his own fate. When he was very young, it was his master who gave him his fate star palace. Back then, his master said that a person's fate star palace was destined by heaven. From the moment you were born, it was already determined what path you should take in your life. Under normal circumstances, if there was no great change, a person's fate and star palace would not change for the rest of his life. But tonight, Sun Randu noticed that the stars in his fate palace were dim, faintly revealing a murderous bloody light. This was a sign of great misfortune. Sun Randu immediately made a divination for himself. Unfortunately, in the end, he tried his best, but the future he saw was still blood red, shocking to the eye. How could this be? Why is this happening? Under Sun Randu's state of mind, he couldn't help but cut his finger with the dagger he carried with him. He used his spiritual power to force out 3 drops of blood essence from his body, and then used a forbidden technique he had learned to activate the great karma technique in the divination gate. As a result, this secret technique used blood as a guide and stretched out a red line. The end of the red line was at the door of Su Zhenjin's room. Was it her? Was it her who affected his fate palace? Was it her who brought this monstrous ferocity? At that time, Sun Randu, who was in a trance outside the door, did not realize that Su Wan was not the only one in the room at this time. The night was clear, and the girl sleeping soundly on the bed could be vaguely seen in the room. Sun Randu stood motionless in front of Su Wan's bed. He gently raised his hand, and traces of spiritual power condensed in his palm. Just one palm from him, and she will die. And at this time, the girl who was sleeping soundly didn't seem to feel anything. She turned over comfortably on the bed, and the faint moonlight shone on her delicate white face, faintly dyeing it with a charming glimmer. This was a living life. Sun Randu's hands were trembling slightly. Although he was not a chivalrous hero, he was by no means a villain who disregarded human life. Just when Sun Randu was in a dilemma and couldn't make up his mind, a subtle sound suddenly came from the beam of the room. Who? Sun Randu's eyes turned cold, and he turned around abruptly. As a result, a black puppy jumped down from the beam and pounced directly on his face. September? Sun Randu's movements flashed, and he raised his hand to grab the black puppy into his arms. Awu, the little black thing, blinking its big bright eyes, looked at Sun Randu pitifully. Sun Randu frowned. September, why did you come here? Yuchi is worried to death about you. Awu, seeing the little thing in his arms looking at him foolishly, Sun Randu couldn't help but shake his head. At this time, Su Zhenjin, on the bed, seemed to be disturbed by the dog's barking. She frowned, her eyelashes trembling, and was about to wake up. Seeing this scene, Sun Randu immediately held the little pet in his arms and quickly pushed out of Su Wan's room. When his figure disappeared from the courtyard, Su Wan on the bed suddenly opened her eyes. A black shadow came down from the roof, carrying an unsuppressible cold aura. Su Rue, calm down. Su Wan stood up and gently hugged Su Rue from behind. Your injuries haven't healed yet. Don't mess around, understand? I know. Su Rue took a deep breath, suppressing the constantly boiling darkness factor in his body. Ever since he got together with Su Wan, the two of them influenced each other, and Su Rue was no longer as tyrannical as before. But this time, when he was almost possessed by the Black Dragon King, he devoured part of the dark power in the Black Dragon King's soul, which made the tyrannical factor in the depths of Su Rue's heart begin to stir. Killing, blood, death, darkness. These, like the most beautiful flower, exuding an alluring fragrance all the time. Su Rue turned around eagerly and kissed Su Wan's lips fiercely. A pair of big hands also couldn't wait to tear open her pajamas. Xiao Wan, give it to me. Oh. Although she knew that her current body was only a soul body, and once she combined with Su Rue, she would constantly absorb the yang qi in his body, Su Wan did not refuse. Chapter 222. Senior Brother Ma. Senior Brother Ma, are you awake? Early in the morning, Su Rue was woken up by Yi Yuchi's knock on the door. He got up from the bed and rubbed his forehead in discomfort. Last night, Senior Brother Ma? The calls from outside the door continued. It was really annoying. He's here. Su Rue changed his clothes and slowly walked to the door to open it. Outside the door, the morning light was bright. Yi Yuchi was wearing a Taoist robe of the Shangqing sect, her long hair draped over her shoulders, and she stood in front of Su Rue with a smile on her face. She was still holding the Black Dragon King with drooping ears and an unhappy face in her arms. Senior Brother Ma, you didn't rest well last night? Seeing that Su Rue's face seemed to be much worse than yesterday, Yi Yuchi couldn't help but ask with concern. I'm not used to sleeping in a new place. Su Rue replied with a cold expression. Black Dragon King. Awu liar. Xiao Yeye was clearly fooling around with a female ghost last night. Be careful of being sucked dry by a female ghost one day. Seeing the little pet in her arms barking twice, Yi Yuchi couldn't help but raise her hand to stroke the Black Dragon King's hair. Senior Marshal Brother Ma, I don't know how your Long ran into Senior Marshal Brother Kwang's yard last night, but he found out and mistook it for September and sent it to my room. I saw that it was too late last night, so I didn't disturb you and took it in for half a night. You don't mind, do you? I don't mind. Surue looked at the Black Dragon King who was still in Yiyuchi's arms. This perverted dragon must have been very happy last night, strictly speaking. It was hard to say who was the one who minded who. I'm relieved that you don't mind, senior brother. It's almost time for morning training. I'm going to do it now. Goodbye, senior brother. Yiyuchi stuffed the Black Dragon King into Surue's arms and then bounced towards the direction of the training hall in a relaxed manner. The Black Dragon King's face was filled with reluctance as he stared at the direction where she had left. Girl, come back quickly, your embrace is so warm and soft. This king can't bear to part with you, perverted dragon. Surue raised his hand and patted the Black Dragon King's small head. He immediately howled and turned his head to glare at Surue. Little Yeya, you're full, and you even have a female ghost warming your bed. Have you ever considered Bunwang's feelings? I've been trapped in the Dragon Abyss Hell for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. I haven't even seen a female mosquito, let alone a woman, alas. My magic power has been fading with time. Otherwise, do you think you and your half-dead son are my match? Humph, humph, humph. There will be a day. There will be a day when this king will. What are you going to do? The Black Dragon King was happily ridiculing in his heart when he suddenly heard Surue's cold and deep voice coming from above his head. His black hair immediately stood on end and his pupils contracted. Damn it, why didn't you speak up earlier if you could hear this king's thoughts? Little Yeya, I was wrong. I was just joking. Really, Binwang never lies, heh? Hearing the Black Dragon King's thoughts, Surue just shrugged his shoulders, his gaze becoming colder. You better obediently listen to me, otherwise I'll swallow you. Swallow, it's not what Binwang thinks it means, right? And it's what you think it means. While the Black Dragon King was shivering, Surue had already turned around and strode towards the main hall of the Shangqing sect. Although he wanted to see what was in the Jiushao Wanfu Palace, it was not appropriate to stay in the Shangqing sect for a long time. What? You said you're leaving. At this time, Su Jinjin had just gotten up. As a result, as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Su Wan sitting by her bed and was immediately startled. Seeing that she was awake, Su Wan just said softly with an indifferent face, I'm leaving, you stay here. When Sun Randu suppresses the yin qi in your body, you can decide whether you want to go or stay. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Jinjin was stunned for a long while, then looked at Su Wan hesitantly and asked cautiously, Where are you going? To reincarnate? You've read too many ghost stories. Su Wan couldn't help glancing at Su Jinjin. Besides, I'm not dead yet. Why would I reincarnate? Su Jinjin's face changed slightly. Only then did she remember that she was occupying Su Wan's body. If she really thought about it, she was a lonely wild ghost. Su Wan did not see the change in Su Jinjin's face. At this time, she was also full of worries. Last night, why did Sun Randu suddenly attack her? Did he find out her identity? Or was it because of something else? If the bug in this world is the foreign transmigrator Su Jinjin, then how can this bug be fixed? Kill Su Jinjin? No, it shouldn't be that simple. Su Jinjin's transmigration was just a random accident, and she doesn't have any spiritual power, so she can't have any impact on this world. What is the real bug in this world? Only by finding it can Su Wan and Surue open the passage to leave this plane again. Su Wan's mind was in a mess now. In order to avoid complications, she must leave the Shangqing sect as soon as possible and leave Sun Randu's line of sight. At least for now, she and Surue can't confront the male protagonist head-on. At this time, above the North Sea, thousands of miles away from the Shangqing sect, in the vast North Sea, the waves were turbulent, and the waves slapped against the reefs, making bursts of pleasant sounds. The morning sun shone on the sea, creating a brilliant and dazzling golden light on the blue sea. However, in the depths of the North Sea, there was a dark red that was ready to move, constantly spreading. Return, 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 my child. The surging red swallowed the darkness at the bottom of the sea, swallowed all the fierce beasts and creatures dormant at the bottom of the sea. The boundless red spread, surged, clamored, galloped, and kept calling. Return, Return. Returned, the deep call transcends the distance of time and space, whispering affectionately in someone's ear, I have waited for you for 1,000 years. All for this reunion. You, come back quickly. I have been waiting for you in the same place in the evening, at the foot of Mount Mao. You don't have to send me off. Brother Ma happened to be going to Nanching, so he will send me home on the way. Su Wan stood at the foot of the mountain and looked at Su Zhenjin and Sun Randu in front of her with a faint smile on her face. Su Zhenjin opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end, she just smiled silently at Su Wan. After this farewell, when will we meet again? Sun Randu looked very calm the whole time. His gaze inadvertently swept over Su Wan's body and then fell on Su Rue. Su Rue was still loitering coldly beside everyone, holding the Black Dragon King in his arms with one hand, while the other hand was twirling the Yuling dagger in his palm in boredom. Ma Yu and his pet Sun Randu's eyes flashed, and in the end, he just nodded slightly at the two of them. Take care, I won't see you off. Jinjin, please help me tell Uncle and Auntie when you get home that I will take good care of Su Wan. And Su Wan nodded. With brother-in-law taking care of elder sister, my parents will naturally be very relieved. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Zhenjin lowered her head shyly. Yiyuchi, who came to see them off, winked at Sun Randu. It was only now that she knew that Miss Su was senior brother Sun's fiancée. AI, the two of them are a perfect match. It's a pity that I'm still not thinking of this. Yiyuchi couldn't help but look up at Su Wan and Su Rue behind her. Senior brother Ma, will you go back to the Ma family after sending Miss Su back to Nanching? En? Hearing Yiyuchi's question, Su Rue hesitated for a moment. Not necessarily, maybe I will train outside for a while. Oh. Hearing Su Rue say this, Yiyuchi nodded. I thought senior brother Ma was going back to the family to see his girlfriend. You guys have been separated for so long. She should miss you very much, right? Girlfriend? Hearing Yiyuchi's words, Su Rue still had a cold expression on his face, but Su Wan couldn't help but smile. Oh, so brother Ma already has a girlfriend. You are so outstanding and handsome. Your girlfriend must be very gentle, lovely, considerate, beautiful, kind, and generous, right? And Su Rue responded with a gentle expression. Not only that, she is the best in the world. No one can compare to her. Su Zhenjin, I've seen people showing off their love, but I've never seen people showing off so happily like you guys, Black Dragon King. Io, this Binwang is so funny. No, what little Yaya said is true. You guys are really a perfect match, Yiyuchi. Senior brother Ma seems to really love his girlfriend. It's so happy to be his girlfriend, Sun Randu. Chapter 223. When Su Wan and Su Rue came down from Mao Mountain, the sun had already set. How about staying at the foot of the mountain for a night? Seeing that Su Rue's complexion was not good, Su Wan couldn't help but suggest. Today, Su Rue's complexion looked really bad. Was it because he tossed around too hard last night, causing the yang qi in his body to dissipate too much? Your mother, this was not something she could control, all right? Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rue nodded. He never objected to his wife's words. The mountain and the foot of the mountain were like two different worlds. At the foot of Mao Mountain was a very prosperous small city. The city was full of tall buildings and neon lights flashed. Because it was next to the famous tourist area, the economy here was relatively developed and the consumption in the city was naturally not low. Fortunately, as a member of the Ma family, Su Rue was also a person with a lot of money. The few gold cards he carried with him all had a lot of savings. The two of them asked for a luxurious suite with a good location. When they went upstairs with the waiter, the young waiter said to the two of them seriously, I can't tell that you two are from other places. Are you here for your honeymoon? Our place is filled with outstanding people, and the scenery is beautiful. It's definitely a good place for a holiday. Do you know Sam Maojinjuan? He is the ancestral master of our Maoshan sect. This place is right next to the Maoshan Blessed Land. Forget demons and evil spirits. Even robbers and thieves wouldn't dare to act presumptuously here. So, you two can rest assured and enjoy yourself here for a few more days. Su Rue. Su Wan. Big brother, there are a few little ghosts floating and playing in this elevator. If you say that, can't you let them be happy ghosts? Out of the elevator, the waiter turned and left. Seeing two little ghosts naughtily flying around him, Su-won was even more speechless. In short, not knowing anything was also a kind of happiness. And, go in. Su-won took the room card and opened the door. Su-rue stood behind her and looked at the other two ghosts that lingered near the two of them and refused to leave. Seeing their malicious gazes staring at Su-won, he slightly knitted his brows and raised his wrist. The Yuling dagger instantly cut through the air. Leave the ghost under the knife. By the time the shouts came from the other end of the corridor, Su-rue had already killed the two perverts to the point where their souls flew away and scattered. Who? At this time, a fat man with a head full of sweat slowly ran over. Brother, they didn't harass you. Why are you so ruthless? Buddhism? Su-rue looked coldly at the kind-looking young fatty in front of him. He had no hair, and there was a conspicuous ring scar on his bald head. This little monk, no, this little one is Chi-bu. In my early years, I cultivated in Buddhism. Now, I have returned to the secular world. Chi-bu smiled gently at Su-rue. One step too late? Looking at your figure, you are indeed a step too late to do anything. One step too late? 100 treasures monk. One step too late? Su-won had just opened the door and was about to step in, but when she heard Chi-bu's name, she suddenly stopped. This monk also appeared in the original plot. Although he had left Buddhism long ago, because he had always been bald and didn't kill people, the people in Shinmin gave him the nickname 100 Treasures Monk. This nickname was also very interesting. It was said that this Chi-bu was born with a kind heart. He was the reincarnation of a kind person for 10 lifetimes. His luck in this life soared to the sky. Wherever he went, there would be amazing treasures appearing. So, the name 100 Treasures Monk was indeed well-deserved. Hearing Su-won call out his nickname all at once, Chi-bu touched his bald head and smiled shyly. Hee, this is just a false reputation, just a false reputation. I don't think you two fellow cultivators look familiar. You aren't from Maoshan, right? Ma family's my you. Su-rue faintly reported his identity, and then pointed to Su-won at the door. She is my lover? Oh, it turns out to be the child of the Ma family of the Exorcist Dragon Clan. I'm sorry for not recognizing you. Chi-bu naturally heard rumors about Mayu. To be honest, his coming to Maoshan this time really had something to do with Mayu. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Chi-bu smiled and greeted the two people, and then began to ramble. It seemed that he didn't want to leave at all. Why don't Big Brother Chi come into the room and sit down? Su-won couldn't help but stand by the door, giving Chi-bu a place. How can I disturb the rest of you husband and wife? Chi-bu shyly declined, but his feet did not stop walking directly into the room of the two people. Oh, the layout in this luxury suite is better than my standard room. Brother Ma, you husband and wife really know how to enjoy life. As soon as Chi-bu entered the room, he couldn't help but look around with his eyes shining. Su-won and Su-rue looked at each other. After closing the door, Su-rue raised his hand and directly set up a sound barrier in the room. With this barrier, unless the other party's cultivation was much higher than Su-rue's, no one could hear the sound in this room. Big Brother Chi, if you have anything to say, you can say it now. Su-rue turned around and sat elegantly on the sofa. Looking at Chi-bu, who was still looking around, his tone slightly raised. Are you looking for something? Hee. Chi-bu smiled. I'm not looking for anything. Hey, Brother Ma, your little black poodle looks very cute. As he spoke, Chi-bu lowered his eyes and fixed his gaze on the Black Dragon King next to Su-rue. Wu, the evil Black Dragon, was naturally most afraid of all good. Chi-bu himself was a good person for 10 lifetimes, and he originally practiced the compassionate curse technique in Buddhism, so he naturally carried good karma. As long as he approached slightly, the hair on the Black Dragon King's body would stand up and he nervously drilled behind Su-rue. It's timid. Su-rue moved his body and blocked the Black Dragon King behind him. Oh, actually, a monk, like small animals the most. Chi-bu smiled awkwardly, and then his eyes fell on Su-won. I still don't know how to address you, sister-in-law. My name is Su-junjin. Su Wan smiled faintly at Chi-Bu. Zhenjin? What a good name. The so-called fake can't be real. The real can't be fake. Don't you think so? Chi-Bu stared at Su Wan, his eyes revealing a somewhat complicated and inexplicable look. In today's world, true and false, false and true, who can say clearly? Su Wan slightly raised her eyebrows and met Chi-Bu's gaze. There was no concession in her tone. Hee, that's true. Sister-in-law can see clearly, but this monk is slow-witted. Chi-Bu touched his bald head out of habit. I was too busy talking to you and your wife. My disappointing stomach is hungry again. I'm going to eat. I won't disturb you anymore. You guys rest early. This place is not peaceful at night. As he spoke, Chi-Bu dragged his fat body slowly to the door. When he finally reached the door, he slapped his head again. Look at this monk's memory. Today is the first time we meet. I think we are also fated. Come, come, come. This is for you, sister-in-law. I wish you a long life and many children and grandchildren. While speaking, Chi-Bu took out a delicate small lock from his pocket. This lock looked a bit like the kind of longevity lock that ancient people used to wear for their children. It was also made of pure silver, but what was engraved on the lock was not the word longevity, but a very complicated ancient text. This is seeing that familiar word. Su Wan's eyes narrowed. Brother Chi, you are really too polite. It's nothing. This thing is not valuable. The most important thing is that it can be used in the right place. I'm leaving. Don't send me off. After Chi-Bu handed the silver lock to Su Wan, he waved his hand with his back to the two people and swaggered out. The corridor of the hotel was still silent and empty. Looking at the wandering souls floating in the air, Chi-Bu sighed slightly. Fate, resentment. You have been lingering here. Why don't you leave early? Leave early. Ba until Chi-Bu's footsteps disappeared. Su Rue walked to Su Wan's side and looked at the silver lock in her hand. This is Soul Seal Lock. The silver lock was engraved with an ancient character seal. Su Wan recognized that character. It was exactly the same as the seal character in the eye of her soul seal technique. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rue's eyes turned cold. The soul sealing lock could seal a person's 3 souls and 7 spirits, and Chi-Bu gave this lock to Su Wan. Whose soul was he telling her to seal? Black Dragon King? Su Zhenjin? Chapter 224. Soul Seal Lock, a magic weapon inherited from the ancient cultivation world, is very rare in modern times. This Chi-Bu is worthy of being called 100 Treasures Monk. The things on his body are all priceless treasures. Su Wan turned the soul seal lock in her palm and slowly walked to the sofa. Awoo, the Black Dragon King curled up his small body and looked at Su Wan pitifully. Don't come over. If you come over again, Binwang will scream awoo. Help he. Su Wan saw the Black Dragon King's terrified expression and couldn't help but laugh. Dragon? Dragon King? TSK. You're really courageous. Black Dragon King. Binwang is definitely being despised? Huh? Okay, wife. Don't tease him. I'm going to take a bath. You will also take a bath in a while. Have a good rest tonight. As he spoke, Su Rue walked to the bathroom while taking off his coat. When he walked into the bathroom, all the clothes on his upper body had been taken off. The mirror of the hotel reflected Su Rue's solid chest and well-proportioned muscles. He bent over to the sink and washed his face. At this time, the bathroom door suddenly clicked and was locked from the inside. Su Rue frowned slightly, and the hairs on his body all stood on end because of the sudden cold air. The mirror in the bathroom was covered with a layer of mist at some point, and a cold, white, soft, and boneless little hand suddenly covered Su Rue's shoulder. You're so handsome, so manly. Luan Jia likes you so much. A sweet and seductive female voice suddenly sounded from behind Su Rue. He frowned in disgust and raised his hand to grab the hand on his shoulder. With a turn, the Yuling dagger in Su Rue's hand was already pressed against the female ghost's jaw. Supreme immortal, handsome, beautiful man. Facing Su Rue's extremely cold eyes, the female ghost immediately trembled in fear. Luanjia is so scared. Don't treat Luanjia like this. While speaking, she didn't forget to throw a coquettish look at Su Rue. Su Rue didn't even look at her. The dagger in his hand had already been waved, and the female ghost in front of him immediately screamed and turned into ashes. Hubby. The door of the bathroom was also opened at this time. Suwon rushed in anxiously. Are you okay? I'm fine. Su Rue shook his head. Just a little ghost. Oh. Hearing this, Suwon's complexion gradually improved. You haven't taken a bath yet? Let me help you with the water. As she spoke, she turned around and turned on the faucet on the bathtub beside her. As the hot water continued to gush out, the entire bathroom became misty. At this time, Su Rue was still standing on the side, slowly taking out the toiletries. From Suwon's angle, she could see his back. Right now, there were still a few red marks on his back. Those were the scratches she made last night. Looking at it, Suwon's face couldn't help but turn red. Hubby, we haven't taken a bath together for a long time. Today, do you wanna? Sure. Su Rue suddenly turned around and smiled at Suwon. Step by step, he forced her to the edge of the bathtub. If you like to bathe, then bathe enough. As he spoke, he suddenly pressed Suwon's head down and pressed her entire face into the hot water. Cough, cough, cough. Hubby, what are you doing? I am you. Woo, cough, cough, cough. Su Rue's hands were very strong, almost pressing her entire body under the water. Seeing the person in the bathtub still struggling, the coldness in Su Rue's eyes became even stronger. Still not willing to show your true form? He sneered and raised his hand. The spiritual sword in his hand had already gathered. Lin, Bing, Do, Sh. Great Immortal, spare me ah. The constantly struggling figure finally changed back to her original appearance, which was still that pale female ghost. Great Immortal, I also don't want to but your body. Your body has a very special smell. I can't control myself. Great Immortal, spare me. Great Immortal, spare me ah. Smell. A red light flashed in Su Rue's eyes, and he gently released the hand holding the female ghost. You were attracted by the smell on my body? Yes, what I said is true. Seeing that Su Rue was finally willing to let go, the female ghost couldn't help but shed tears of gratitude and said, that smell is like spirit attraction incense. It has a fatal attraction to ghosts and spirits. I don't know why I came here, and then when I saw you, I couldn't help but want. Speaking up to here, the female ghost's expression was also very conflicted. Aya, sister has always been a very pure female ghost. Really very pure okay. Leave immediately, don't let me see you again, otherwise. Yes. Seeing that Su Rue was willing to let her go, the female ghost immediately smiled through her tears and her entire figure slowly turned into nothingness, disappearing in front of Su Rue. The water in the bathtub was still flowing, the warm water unknowingly changing color. Red. Glaring red. Gorgeous red. Tragic and desperate red. Return. I am waiting for you to return, my child. A distant call, sometimes absent. Su Rue slowly closed his eyes and the spiritual sword in his hand suddenly stabbed towards the water surface. As the water splashed, the redness faded like the tide, as if it had never appeared. Red Sea, Red North Sea. The sea demon that had been entrenched there for thousands of years, was she summoning him? Su Rue lightly let go. The spiritual sword in his hand gradually turned into nothingness. By the time Su Rue came out of the bathroom, Suwon had already fallen asleep on the sofa. She seemed to be very tired. Su Rue couldn't help but walk to the sofa and look at the sleeping Suwon. Staring at her eyebrows, Su Rue couldn't help but slowly bend down and kiss Suwon's face. Woo! Suwon on the sofa suddenly woke up and raised her hand to embrace Su Rue. You finished bathing? As she spoke, she suddenly raised her chin, wrinkled her nose and sniffed Su Rue's body. So fragrant. What shower gel did you use? The smell is a bit strange, but it's very fragrant. I really want to eat you. Su Rue's gaze froze, but he still smiled and raised his lips. Is it really that fragrant? Why can't I smell it myself? Your nose is bad? Hee. Su Wan smiled in a daze and subconsciously moved closer to Su Rui's body. So tired. I don't want to bathe. Quickly carry me to bed. I want to sleep. In. Okay. Su Rui bent down and carried Su Wan in his arms and went straight to the big bed in the bedroom. The big bed in the hotel was very soft. As soon as she got on the bed, Su Wan felt her whole body sink into it. So tired, too lazy to move, her body didn't have any strength at all. Seeing Su Wan fall asleep on the big bed, Su Rui's gaze was fixed on her body. The night was the time when the spiritual power of the spiritual body was the most abundant. Why was she so sleepy and powerless? Xiaohei? Xiaohei? Su Rui shouted outside the bedroom twice, but such a voice still didn't wake Su Wan up. Black Dragon King. Who is Xiaohei? Bin Wang reluctantly accepted the tacky name Long Long. As for Xiaohei, don't even think about it. Xiaohei. Feeling the anger in Su Rui's tone, the Black Dragon King immediately ran into the bedroom. Oh, woo, cough, cough. This, as a dragon, he should also know when to yield and when to stand tall. This is a real man. Look at her. What's wrong with her? Su Rui couldn't see Su Wan's situation, but he believed that the Black Dragon King must know a lot of things that he didn't know after living for tens of thousands of years. Her? This female ghost. She. The Black Dragon King raised his nose and sniffed. He jumped to the side of the bed and looked at Su Wan, who was almost in a coma on the big bed. She is a living soul? The Black Dragon King was shocked. All along, Su Wan had been using the spiritual power of a ghost cultivator. The yin qi on her body was faintly discernible. He always thought that she was an ordinary ghost cultivator. He didn't expect that she was actually a living soul. A living soul? At this time, sensing the Black Dragon King's words, Su Rui's eyes also flashed. He almost forgot that Su Wan's identity in this world was not dead yet. She was still alive. Ordinary living souls were actually more powerful than yin souls, but they also had a fatal weakness. The Black Dragon King blinked his big eyes and looked around Su Rui. You sucked her soul power? Soul power? Su Rui's face was blank. What he knew about this world, in addition to the content of the plot, was the memories left to him by Mayu, and these memories did not include these things. Seeing that Su Rui was also at a loss, the Black Dragon King's expression became more solemn. Xiaoyeye, don't you feel it? Tell me, who exactly are you? What are you hiding in your body? What are you hiding? Su Rui's expression suddenly changed. He remembered that Su Wan entered this world before him. At that time, maybe this world was still normal? Therefore, Su Jinjin was not the bug they thought she was. The real bug was Mayu. Chapter 225. North CC Demon. No one knew how long she had lived, and no one had seen what her true form was, but she did exist. Blossoming to the flower of Tumi, the sky thorns grow out of the wall of berries. Su Rui suddenly whispered in a low voice. Tumi, the flower of heaven, a pure white flower, is said to be able to eliminate all sins in the world. Tumi? When the Black Dragon King heard Su Rui's words, his pupils shrank sharply. Could it be her? Little Yeye, is there Tumi's son hidden in your body? Tumi's son? Hearing the Black Dragon King's words, Su Rui's eyes flashed. Little Black, do you know something? Black Dragon King. What Little Black? It's really worrying. 10,000 years ago, the human world was still an era of abundant spiritual energy. At that time, everyone could cultivate and become an immortal. At that time, not only the human race, but also the monster race, the ghost race, the devil race, the dragon race, and even the immortal race and the god race all lived on the same continent. At that time, Tumi was a famous beauty in the immortal world. Well, the Black Dragon King admitted that he had indeed coveted her beauty for many years. She and Bayan, one in heaven and the other in hell, were known as the most beautiful flowers in the world, but also the saddest flowers in the world. Back then, Bayan was hurt by love and voluntarily threw herself into hell. The flower didn't see the leaf didn't see the flower, and the flower and leaf didn't see each other. And Tumi? Tumi was pure white, the symbol of kindness. But when she was in heaven, she fell in love with an evil emperor in the human world. The evil emperor had done evil all his life and was full of sins, but he yearned for the most beautiful pure white in the world. In order to be with the evil emperor, Tumi voluntarily left heaven and abandoned all her good karma. The two of them lived a good life in the human world, but after a long time, the evil emperor got tired of it. What he loved was always the pure as snow Tumi high in the clouds, not the woman who fell into the human world and was willing to dye herself blood red for him. Love, sometimes, was so cruel. The blossoming of flowers was just love at the end of the road. After being abandoned by the evil emperor, Tumi realized that she was pregnant with the evil emperor's child. She was not reconciled. Her monstrous resentment dyed the entire North Sea a dazzling red. She killed her and the evil emperor's child with her own hands and let his soul reincarnate with resentment and darkness. She wanted the demonic emperor to regret this for the rest of his life. How terrible was a woman's resentment! The black dragon king sighed in the bottom of his heart. Tumi voluntarily turned into a demon in the sea and woke up once every 1,000 years. Every time she woke up, she would look for the reincarnated soul of the son of the evil emperor in the mortal world. Then, she would call him and swallow him, making the resentment in his soul grow heavier and heavier. This was her punishment for the Dark Emperor and also for herself. The soul of Tumi's son was blood red, with the taste of good and evil. That was the most tempting and delicious taste in the world. Mayu, the son of Tumi, lives in your body. Yes, Bin Wang was attracted by his extremely dark aura that day. So that's how it is. Su Rue nodded. In the original plot, the demon of the North Sea was just an ordinary sea demon and was finally beheaded by Sun Randu. Now, the demon of the North Sea in this world has become Tumi, and Mayu's body has a trace of the soul of Tumi's son. This is the bug that destroyed the laws of the entire world. It seems that only by eliminating Tumi, or the son of Tumi, will the order of this world be restored to its original state. But the urgent matter now is to make Su Wan's body better. The soul of Tumi's son carries a seductive fragrance. He will unconsciously attract all spiritual bodies, especially those female spiritual bodies. They will lose their rationality and combine with Tumi's son, and in the process, the soul of Tumi's son will absorb their soul power. A soul that has lost its soul power is like a human who has lost his lifespan, growing old and unable to live more than a few days. Xiao Yeye, the Black Dragon King on the side, continued to communicate with Su Rue in his heart. The son of Tumi in your body is still sleeping. No, it should be said that he has been suppressed by you. His resentment and evil are firmly suppressed by you. So it's normal that you can't feel him, but when you are fooling around with this female ghost, when the two of you are making love, your body will still involuntarily absorb her soul power. Although it's only a little bit, ordinary spiritual bodies can recover as long as they rest for a while, but she is a living soul. Living souls are powerful and fragile. Because she has left her body, her soul power is extremely fragile. Now, if you want to save her, there are only two ways. First, let her return to her body as soon as possible. Second, hunt other soul bodies and replenish her soul power. The more the better. Return to her body? Su Rue shook his head. He remembered that Su Wan told him that Su Zhanjin crossed over with merit, and it was impossible to force her soul out of Su Wan's body. So now there is only one way left. Su Rue turned his face and looked at Su Wan, who had fallen into a deep sleep. Xiao Wan, have a good rest. Everything will be fine tomorrow. Everything will be fine. Look after her. I'm going out for a bit. Su Rue leaned over and kissed Su Wan's face, then turned and strode away. The Black Dragon King looked at Su Rue's back, and behind him, there was a red blood aura pervading. Son of Tumi, your resentment is soaring, but this time you really met an incredible opponent, an opponent that makes Bunwang's liver tremble. You better pray for your own good luck. When Su Rue left his room, Chi Aibu, who had just fallen asleep on the same floor, suddenly opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. When the evil dragon appeared, the world would be in chaos. Everyone thought that the prophecy said that the evil dragon was the one who brought disaster to the world, but in fact, the person who caused the world to be in chaos in the prophecy was the one who summoned the evil dragon. AI. Chi Ibu sat on his bed and sighed deeply. Good and evil will eventually be rewarded. To me, you have fallen for 10,000 years and let your son reincarnate for 10,000 years. It's time for everything in this life to end. The night was deep and dangerous. As Chi-Ibu said, this small city was not very peaceful because this city was next to Mount Mao. Mount Mao was full of spiritual energy, and there would be some leakage of spiritual energy floating in the city. Therefore, although this was the foot of the mountain of the Shangqing sect, there were countless ghosts, creatures, and monsters gathered here. They traveled under the cover of the night and rarely harmed anyone. The only reason they gathered here was because they wanted to cultivate amidst the abundant spiritual energy. For many years, they and the Taoist priests of the Shangqing sect had not interfered with each other. However, all of this would end tonight because Su Rue was here. In the darkness of the night, Su Rue found a desolate and uninhabited suburb. He quietly held his breath, and when he opened his eyes again, his eyes were flowing with traces of blood red. A strange smell drifted in all directions, intermittently attracting all the souls in the entire city. The countless souls surrounded Su Rue. They roared, and the whole soul body trembled with excitement. Su Rue stood in place and did not move. He closed his eyes again and released his divine sense to sense quietly. It was not until he felt that most of the soul bodies in the entire city had surrounded him that he slowly opened his eyes. This was a pair of different pupils. One pupil was surging red, and the other pupil was strangely black. He. Su Rue suddenly sneered in a low voice. 1,000 years? Is it the period of 1,000 years again? I want to swallow you. Swallow you. Swallow everything. He roared with a hideous expression, but the next moment, the strange color in his pupils suddenly faded. You are useless. Get back to where you came from. Su Rue's voice was very cold. At this moment, the hideous expression on his face faded, leaving only an ice-cold indifference. To me's son. The spirit sword in his hand gradually appeared. Su Rue coldly looked at the group of souls around him and did not hesitate to make a move. Chapter 226. Suwon slept for a long time. Since she became a soul and drifted in this world, she had never slept for such a long time. In fact, under normal circumstances, a soul would not feel so sleepy. Suwon also knew that there was probably something wrong with her soul. Fortunately, when she woke up at noon, her whole body was full of strength. Even under the noon sun, the spiritual power in her body was still very abundant. The bedside was warm. Obviously, Su Rue had just gotten up not long ago. When Suwon came out of the bedroom, she saw Su Rue eating in the hall. You're awake? Do you want to eat something? Seeing that Suwon was in good spirits, Su Rue couldn't help but smile at her. You eat. Although Suwon's body was now the same as ordinary humans, she could also eat, drink, and defecate. But at this time, she really didn't feel hungry at all. The Black Dragon King also rolled his eyes when he heard Su Rue's words. Your sister. Last night, you almost killed all the ghosts in the city and fed them to your wife. If she can still feel hungry, then she's definitely the #1 foodie in the 3 realms. Not one of them after eating, the two went downstairs to check out and plan to leave. As a result, they met Chi-Ibu again in the lobby on the 1st floor of the hotel. Chi-Ibu looked like he didn't sleep well all night, with 2 big dark circles under his eyes. Where are you going? Maybe we're going the same way? As a familiar person, Chi-Ibu once again entangled Su Rue and Suwon. Where to? Suwon turned to look at Su Rue. Go to North Sea. Su Rue whispered softly. The sea monster was about to be born, and all kinds of demons and ghosts were gathered in the north, where there were countless souls waiting for him to kill. Moreover, he must personally end the bug in this world. North Sea was the only choice. What a coincidence. This monk is also going to North Sea. Fate. Let's go together. Okay? Chi-Ibu looked at Su Rue with a smile, but his tone was very firm. All right. Su Rue did not refuse. He always felt that this Chi-Ibu was too mysterious and had too many secrets hidden on him. Instead of letting him stroll around elsewhere, it was better to let him stay under his eyes. Moreover, Su Rue had always had a strong perception. He felt that Chi-Ibu had no malice towards him and Suwon. Brother Chi, you look very haggard. Did you not rest well last night? When the three people left the hotel, Suwon looked at the dark circles on Chi-Ibu's face and couldn't help but ask, about that, I chanted the rebirth mantra for most of the night last night. Speaking up to hear, Chi-Ibu subconsciously glanced at Su-Rue and then retracted his gaze. Big Brother Chi, you've worked hard. Suwon smiled at him and then intimately leaned on Su-Rue's body, her ice-cold lips close to his ear. Last night? What did you do? Oh. Su-Rue smiled and put his hand on Suwon's shoulder. Don't mess around. I'll talk to you when I have time. Be good. Oh. Suwon nodded but still leaned comfortably in Su-Rue's arms. In front of him, she was willing to put away all her sharp claws and fangs and just be a happy little woman. When the three people left Maoshan, they also drove a car. Of course, with Su-Rue's status, he naturally bought a new car directly. It didn't matter if there was insurance or a license plate, as long as he could drive it. The three people did not take the highway, but took the national highway. Looking at the scenery on both sides of the road that kept retreating, Suwon subconsciously touched her wrist. On her right wrist, she was still wearing the golden bracelet. This bracelet. At this time, Chi-Ibu, who was sitting in the back seat, also saw the bracelet on Suwon's wrist. This thing of yours is very special. Can you show it to me? Suwon waved her hand at Chi-Ibu. I have tried many times, but this bracelet can't be taken off at all. Brother Chi, do you know this thing? No, I don't. Chi-Ibu smiled shyly. It's because this monk doesn't know, so I'm even more curious. Who gave you this thing? This should never belong to this era, or even this world. A friend gave it to me. Suwon's tone lowered. She thought of old Ghost, thought of his story. That person had never truly smiled. Seeing that Suwon didn't want to say more, Chi-Ibu's eyes flashed. He smiled and leaned his whole fat body on the seat again. It was so comfortable, he could finally have a good sleep. Black Dragon King, you damn fatty, one person occupies 2.5 people's space. Can't you leave more space for Benwang? And? Su-Rue had been driving seriously. When he heard Suwon talk about the origin of the bracelet, Su-Rue's eyes also flashed. That person gave it to her. Inexplicably, Su-Rue felt very uncomfortable. What the hell is not being able to take it off? One day, he would definitely pluck that damn thing from his wife's hand. Of course, Su-Rue now knew that he could never tell Suwon the truth of the matter. He was really afraid that if he said that old Ghost was Su-Su, Suwon would immediately fly into a rage. Now, their situation was complicated enough, and Su-Rue naturally couldn't take the initiative to complicate matters. The journey to North Sea was long, but fortunately, Su-Rue was not in a hurry. Every time he passed a city, he would stop to rest. During the day, he would accompany Suwon to stroll around, and at night, Su-Rue would quietly come out to hunt souls. In this way, after more than half a month, wherever they passed, all the souls were swept clean. This abnormal phenomenon finally aroused the vigilance of the people in Shinmin's sect. Everyone was secretly speculating whether the ghost hunters had appeared again. They had always hunted ghosts for a living and were a very special race. Later, after many people investigated, everyone also found some clues, and finally all the clues pointed to two people, Mayu and Chi-Ibu. The two people traveled together and did not deliberately hide their identities on the road, especially when Su-Rue would spend money wantonly to buy a lot of good things and souvenirs for Suwon every time they went to a place. The traces they left along the way were completely consistent with the traces of the disappearance of those souls. Chi-Ibu was a well-known philanthropist. Naturally, no one would doubt him, and Mayu had now naturally become the #1 suspect. Of course, as an exorcist, there was nothing wrong with exorcising ghosts. It was just that the indiscriminate killing of so many ghosts was still very strange. Why did Mayu hunt souls so crazily and wantonly? Just when everyone was full of doubts, a piece of shocking news suddenly came from the Shangqing sect. Mayu, he was actually with a female ghost. Rumor has it that this female ghost had cultivated for thousands of years, and her magic was profound. She bewitched Mayu and asked him to help her hunt other souls in order to enhance her cultivation base. Female ghost, everyone suddenly realized. According to the news they got, Wasn't there a girl who had been following my Yu and Chiibu? In the modern Shinmin sect, most of the magic books and magical weapons have been lost. There was no sect transmission talisman or 1,000 miles communication stone. Fortunately, now that technology was developed, everyone could make phone calls. When Chiibu was in a daze in the car, he received a call from an old friend of his. After hearing the relevant rumors from his old friend, Chiibu immediately became spirited. "En? Mayu? I'm with him? Female ghost? Where is there a female ghost? What a load of nonsense." After hanging up the phone, Chiibu's face turned gloomy. What's wrong? In fact, Su-won had already heard the content of his phone call, but she still couldn't help but ask. Nothing. Chiibu raised his head, and on his round face hung his signature shy smile. "Zhunjin, did you offend anyone in the Shangqing sect?" "Offended someone?" Su-won frowned. She didn't offend Sun Randu, but Sun Randu seemed to want to kill her. However, her identity was covered by the pseudo-immortal weapon given by the old ghost. According to reason, it was impossible to be discovered by Sun Randu, unless it's Suzheng. Su-won's tone carried a hint of killing intent. "You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."